Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. This is finally the 20th and last in this kind of mini semi-series of Lockdown Podcast. We've got the full crew here eventually. We do all the usual things. This time we take a look at everything we painted over the last 20 weeks. We've got the quiz, we've got some conversations about real and virtual gaming. We get into Waterloo with the Napoleonic session. We do also have a poem from Andy, which means there's an awful lot of Andy-based content in this one. And then finally, as usual, there's some secret bonus extra material if you listen past the end of the final credits music. Sit back, enjoy the podcast.
This means war.
Well, welcome to episode number 20. A staggering achievement, or a staggering way of marking time through this somewhat protracted lockdown worldwide malarkey, which has clearly gone on longer than I think anybody in the world thought would happen. Whether that's true for the lockdown or the podcast or both, I'm not entirely sure. We're here with the starting team of 6 this week. Adam is winding his way from a cricket match and may well join us by halfway through or something like that. But, you know, we've got the 6 of the normal 7 here as we hit the fabulous episode number 20. And in a bit of a variety from...
Is normal not exaggerating it a bit, Tim?
Well, yes, okay. Normal's kind of pushing it a little bit, I suspect. But I think
usual?
Possibly.
Usual? Yeah.
Usual, yes, usual. Not even standard, usual. But in a sort of slight sort of stretch version of a break from reality, instead of this week, what have you been painting in the last week? What we're going to look around is what have you painted in the last 20 weeks? And I've got a suspicion that there's frantic scribbling on pads. There's possibly a couple of spreadsheets. There may even be a visual data graphic representation from Mr. Webb. We'll see, as he brings his work skills to the table. But I think, Simon, in your role as, IT bloke of the set, you must have a spreadsheet. Tell us what's on the Simon, I'm guessing it exists, Lee Ray Mayer spreadsheet, and
yes.
Talk us through what you've painted in the last 20 weeks.
So yes, I do have a spreadsheet. I didn't get the VLOOKUPs done just in time. I did ran out of interest on that point.
The VLOOKUPs, is that a unit in the Napoleonic army, or some of your Swedes?
No,
the
it's
VLOOKUP regiment.
No, it's only from the 7 Years' War, because by the time I get to so
fine. Okay.
So I've treated every model, whether it's 6mm, 15mm, or 25mm, as one object.
Okay.
So
what about toothbrushes?
Toothbrushes don't count because they're accessories.
Okay. Yes, accessories is important.
Yeah. So annoyingly, I am 4 short of the number I wanted to get to. So I've counted. Yeah, 4 short of. So,
4 things.
Yeah, 4 objects. So in the last 20 weeks, I've only painted a mere 996 models.
Oh no! Oh,
you loser!
1,000 things.
So you've got time on this call to actually get it done.
Yeah, I was thinking that, but I thought that was cheating because we had to have the list sort of nominally concluded by yesterday. But
you've got nearly 2 hours left. You could be
so near
1,000
so far.
Yeah, I know.
Especially if they're Austrians.
Yeah. So terrifyingly, I look at it in my 25mm Chinese army. I think I had most of it finished before lockdown started, so that doesn't count. But yeah, looking at armies like the Gaulish army, so the warband. So during lockdown, they went from an army that was fully badly painted that I brought back from Australia, stripped, rebased, repainted, and that was a mere 256 models.
So you've not only painted those, you've unpainted them as well.
Yeah, so they
started painted, you've unpainted them, you've painted them again. So that almost counts double. You must get the extra 4 for that. Unpainting.
If they were previously painted, it should count half, shouldn't it?
Yeah, that should be at least half.
So I've done those. Then you've got things like clear the lookup tables. Just a mere 10 elephants. I'm sorry, Mr. Webb. I only got to 10 full elephants, but they were elephants with at least 4 crew and most of them with either guns or umbrellas.
So it's one elephant.
Didn't you do some artillery elephants as well?
I did two elephants with artillery, and then another 8 elephants. Whoops.
So those have got to count double.
Yeah, so I counted them as 4 models each, because each elephant has 3 crew plus the elephant. Chinese 25mm chariots, 15mm chariots, quite a lot of Renaissance, a bucket load of 7-year Swedes, which I know doesn't get into Napoleonics, but they've still got white uniforms and cute hats. A lot of modern tanks, and not to be forgotten, 8 25mm rabbits.
Of course, the rabbits do count, don't they? That's good. So
one armed with a carrot.
So if
and the Swedish 30-year war stuff you did as well, that was very nice.
Oh yes, I got the Swedish, the pike and shot salvo guys, Prince Rupert with Bonnie, and other stuff.
So is there anything you look back and go, I'd learnt something through the process of doing those that, over this, or any kind of techniques or tricks or things other than buy the right size shield transfers? If I think back almost 18 weeks to when you bought the wrong ones. But
details.
Details.
The one I had the most fun with, in some ways, was the galls. I used some of the techniques that Tamsin and Dave had suggested about, doing some of the skins, some of the shields and all that. But I also managed to try to do some of the Celtic blue tattoos. Okay. So on a few of the warband, when you look at them at long distance, you can see the blue tattoos down the chest, and quite a few of them are buck naked. Which is generally an Australian in after 4 beers and in Soho, but that's a whole other story.
Yep.
Yeah, so they came out quite nice. And then doing the 7 Years' War Swedish, trying to get the idea of actually mixing blue and getting the yellow, the blue, the different colours and all that stuff with the regimental guns and all that stuff. They came out quite nice. So one day I'll actually get them on the table as well.
Excellent. So that's, 4 short of 1,000 is pretty pokey there. I think that's a very, very credible thing. Is there any ones that you actually were going, this was a drag, or is it just all a blur of 1,000 different things as you look back?
I think all of them came down to they're all quite motivational, because the goals were being aimed for campaign back in the day when we thought we'd actually be wargaming in May. Ha ha.
Yeah, God, imagine. Yeah.
I know, so that would be nice. I thought I'd be able to bring the 25mm Chinese to roll call. Oh no, that got cancelled. Yep. Then there was the goals for this. Then there was going to be something for the world. That got canned. I think it's just a lot of fun. Just
a lot of moving deadlines then.
And having a lot of motivation to keep sane. What can I do? Buy more toy soldiers and help wargaming suppliers around the UK.
No, that's very, very altruistic of you then. Okay, well, so Tamsin, going to a different scale, a different thing. I guess you've done buildings and scatter terrain. It must be difficult to even come up with a taxonomy or whatever for counting the things that you've done. Or there's got to be all sorts of different stuff in there of different scales, starting from.
It's all been 28mm.
Yeah. So Tamsin,
28mm.
You can just do yours in
28mm. I've just opened up the gallery to go through everything I've painted since it.
Oh, they look nice.
Not much. So starting off, I did 10 Waffen SS, which were for a friend. And then there was Wars of Rose's Army. Mm-hmm. It was about 200, just over. It was 200 odd foot and 36 mounted.
Okay, wow.
Then there was sort of pulp era scatter terrain, sci-fi scatter terrain, and then of course sort of my Judge Dredd Mega City 1 project. So
I think calling that a project is undercooking it a little bit, wasn't it? That's almost building a city.
Yeah, a little bit. I had the judges and judges, perps, buildings, city death troopers, fatties.
It does look like there's a rule book missing a whole series of pictures to be taken, because these are stunning.
They were excellent. So that was one of the things where you were you started doing your own. I was going to say tattoos. I'm talking about
I've graffiti decals. Yeah. I printed out two sheet A4 sheets of decals, one on cleared paper, one on white decal paper. I've been using them. I've had a few issues with the decals sticking on the paper and not coming off it. Right.
I guess if you've got two A4 sheets, you can afford some attrition there, can't you?
Oh yeah, it's about.
And what do you think? Because I've been trying to read up on some of that to try and do some of that myself at some point in future. Did you because there's either white backing, which means you've got to paint carefully around it, or there is transparent backing, which you might not get the colours, is the theory on the internet. But did you come up with a conclusion as to which one is the best way of doing it?
I still haven't really. I found the clear one. One's printed on clear. You can either sort of dry brush white where you're going to be applying them, and then because it's graffiti, that just looks like the prep that the tagger is done.
Right. Okay.
On the surface.
Yeah.
Or you can just leave them as they are, and they're just faded, old. They're already slightly pre-weathered.
Okay.
And then when you use white ones printed on the white backing, when you want them to look as though they're quite fresh.
A bit more ping, because I guess if you were doing it on shields and stuff, you wouldn't have that worry. You could underpaint white anyway.
Yeah.
So the clear transfer stuff would work just well enough.
Yeah, I think that's the idea.
Okay. All the
various
marking off.
Done, and in the last week I painted up a lot more concrete.
Yeah,
and I went a bit OTT on these with the decals and posters. So every item this side has now. So of course
that's magic.
Oh, I've done 8 T-wall sections and 8 jersey barrier sections. Then I placed another order and got another 8 of each of those. A pack of 8 sort of damaged jersey barriers and a packet of K-rail barriers as well. And painted all those up towards the end of last week. Then I got some more scattered terrain done over the weekend. So some vending machines, some miniguns, some prisoner holding posts, garbage grinders, gas cylinders.
Yeah, you've got to have some gas cylinders to blow up.
Last night, started painting, got the painting done on this final bit, a subway entrance, and did the varnishing and sort of decals today.
Okay.
Washing and decals today.
So how many buildings have you actually got in your Mega City 1 then now? Is it?
It's 3 buildings plus subway entrance and the burger stall.
Okay. Plus all the scatter and the rest of it.
Plus all the scatter. So you've got 2 billboards, you've got 6 shipping containers.
No, I hear good things about this game. I've seen a couple of bits on Twitter when people have said it's a nice, simple kind of mechanics. It really does flow well.
It certainly flows well because it's basically the same mechanics as Strontium Dog, and that works very well with the Strontium Dog bit. But with Judge Dredd, the judges, because they're quite expensive to buy, can easily be massively outnumbered, and they could easily get taken out before they even get their chip gets drawn.
Okay.
And you got the issues then that most judges are of high enough cool factor that they get the star chip, which means they could return it. They could try to return it to the bag, but the risk if they do that is that if they fail, they get a pin marker, which means that they can't react to things.
Right, and then the game's over.
If they're the judges, can't they make their own rules?
Yeah.
That is a very good point. What one of the game designers has suggested as an alternative bit is rather than giving them the star chip, give them several action chips. And then when they draw sort of the second, third, whatever one's out, they roll a cool test, and if they get a special result, a special on the die, then they get 2 actions with that chip. Otherwise, they just get 1, as though they'd been pinned without actually being pinned.
Okay, so they might sort of effectively semi-skip some of their turns just to level it up a bit then. Yeah, I guess it's difficult where there's masses of people against 1 or 2. You do need to do a lot of reactions to make that work. Wow.
I mean, 'cause a typical judge, sort of veteran street judge, you're talking 23, 24 points. And for that money, you could get six or seven low ranking perps with guns.
Okay, right, yeah, yeah. That's a lot of lead and laser beams flying at people, isn't it? For sure.
Yeah.
Riot foam. Is it 2018? They dropped riot foam and everybody gets stuck in the foam.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fun.
That's not just South Harrow, is it, Dave? No.
No. They just drop foam at everybody and they're just stuck in a big block.
Oh right. Okay, then they get stuck.
I remember that from the comic.
Right. Okay.
Showing my age.
I thought that was the cops in the helicopter over your house.
That could be it from last week, couldn't it? All right. Well, look, Dave, you look like you're you've been stuck in the riot foam of your flat, painting away in that corner for the last 20 weeks, and you've been doing. Well, I can think of at least 3 or 4 armies that we've lived through with you. What things have you done? What's your
So the cavalry, I mean, there's a bit of determination. The cavalry counts double.
I guess it's a different. It's how normally if you were counting numbers of things, you'd be saying cavalry counts double for sure. So I guess it's, but give us a cavalry plus infantry thing, or just give us a grand total.
I've done a spreadsheet, funnily enough. So
there's a spreadsheet. My lord.
777, weirdly enough, 777 infantry. 131 cavalry, which I'm going to count double.
Yeah.
Chariots. Ooh, that's a bit of a discount. 2 horses, 2 guys,
horses, 2 crew.
Oh,
It's probably 2 cavalry, isn't it? 2 cavalry or 4 things, maybe. Count them as 4s.
I don't know.
Simon's going for 5s. He's counting the chariot as well as a 5th.
Artillery camps, blah blah blah. So I reckon if it's 777 infantry. Call it 304. So I reckon 1,074 in total.
Things.
Yes.
You crept over the 1,000. So 777 infantry. How many cavalry was that?
131.
131. And then
double. And
then stacks of other stuff then. So what's been your favourite amongst that lot?
The Ottomans for definite.
Is that because they're the most recent and you've
not really. I've started painting the Franks since then, but so there's 4 armies. There was started off with samurai, then Scythians, then went to the Ottomans, Egyptians, and Franks were the last lot. But the Ottomans were really good fun. I really enjoyed them. Nice figures. They've come out outstanding. They're really, really. I just sit there and look at them and go, "Oh, did I paint that?" It's really good.
Is that the Khorasan ones?
Yeah, American. Yeah.
That you got from Sean. Okay, because the samurai was a bit. Turned into a bit of an ordeal in the end, didn't it?
It was. There was all those banners, and also it was like you need to have a mix of troops. I mean, it's best to do an army at a time, but you need to be able to go from cavalry back to infantry. But when you're just doing samurai, oh, I'll do a base of bowmen.
Yeah.
Back to samurai. Oh, do some cavalry, blah blah blah. And the banners were fun. I mean, and also the generals were good fun in the samurai, and the camps really good with the banners behind and all that sort of thing. So they were okay.
Did your because there was always that thing about you were trying different techniques for samurai. Did you settle on by the end of it a way that you wish you'd done all of them?
I don't know really. No,
you learned nothing from that process.
Doing them black, a bit of dry brushing to pick out the detail, and then I think I ended up putting black on again. I mean, I did a pretty hard work on them. It wasn't just paint, ink, blah blah blah. I think it was paint, it was undercoat, dry brush, paint, ink, paint again, sort of case. So they were quite hard work, but they were good. They were fun.
Mm-hmm. And still. Almost none of these have yet to. Well, have many of them taken the field of play yet?
No, the Ottomans have been out. The Franks were out at your house.
The Franks were out, indeed. Yeah,
they're out.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. Yeah,
that was fun. No, the Egyptian have still got another 8 more chariots. The ongoing saga of the Egyptian chariots.
Right. Okay.
Even though I've got 6, there's still 8 more in the box to be done. There's plenty more for the continued lockdown to come. Yeah.
Right. And so Khorasan win and Kickstarter wins as well. In fact, I think you were painting so long that you actually got some of the Kickstarter delivered that you'd ordered, a year ago?
Oh, no, I've had one Kickstarter for Justinians and camels was at Christmas, and then since then I've ordered more from them. I think War and Empire I don't know, it could be going up for 400 quid. I think over the time.
Wow. Well, that's not bad for.
And that, so but I think the Franks are going to turn into 2 Frankish armies, funnily enough, because I think I've overordered.
Right. Okay.
We'll see where that takes me.
No surprise then. All right. And any kind of things that you've particularly learned in the process of doing that? Any new things which you're taking forward?
No, not really. No.
I
think the fun bit is finding my 1970s minifigs. I finally got them back from my mother after they've been lost 3 or 4 times.
So she playing with them?
No. She told me she gave them away at one point, and then they researched, and then they disappeared again, and so they finally got back to my house. So that
he wanted them back when he found his mum was winning with them.
I've got Roman cavalry.
Because she keeps beating you.
I've got Roman 25mm cavalry, which I painted in the 70s.
Oh, that looks like proper Humbrol enamels.
It is absolutely 100% Humbrol enamels.
That's genius. It'll be impressive if you can strip those figures, see if they've got any more detail after you've taken the enamel off.
Has anybody got a suggestion for taking enamel off?
Brake fluid.
Yeah.
I think the shields are quite funky considering how old they are.
I've got a suggestion.
Brake fluid or nitromorphs.
No, I really want them. I want these to be reconditioned, and I want these to appear on the table.
Sorry, Tamsin, are you saying that nitromorphs will actually take that off?
Nitromorphs?
I don't know.
You just stand back when you try.
Stripping enamel for a long time, so
Baby Sham.
Or a flamethrower.
Yeah, that could be it. Well, nitromorphs, that would be interesting. You might want to try and do that outside in the park and run away to a safe distance when you pour that on, quite possibly, because that's pretty pokey stuff. But
that will get the police flying over your house.
That probably would, wouldn't it? Yeah. If you go buy an industrial bucket full of that, that'll be a challenge. Okay.
I'm definitely determined to have a scratch 1970s 25mm army on the table at some point. That was going to be a bit of a laugh.
Okay. So the
other alternative, though I don't think it's listed as not being in stock at the moment online, is Wilco's paint and varnish stripper, because I've used that for stripping the paint jobs off sort of Hot Wheels cars. So that would be enamel.
Wow.
I did have some Matchbox cars appeared with the box, which is really odd.
So Tamsin, how well did the stripper take off the Hot Wheels cars paint jobs? Because they're baked on.
Quite well. You need to scrap a bit. But
did it dissolve the tyres, or did it dissolve the tyres? Maybe not.
No, you dismantle the cars first, just put the metal bits in.
Right, okay. Otherwise it would just be all just one gloopy mess.
Yeah, it will destroy some plastic.
Okay, all right. So
plastics are okay. It's
weird.
Can't really tell until you try it.
Yeah. So I think, Dave, that probably puts you in the lead on the number of things. So
far, so good.
I think Tamsin, we've still not quite worked out how to reverse engineer how many things a building is. But I think for your,
or how much a Jersey barrier is
exactly. But I guess your 28mm scale just gives you quality wise an advantage, but numerically wise is tough against these big 15mm boys, isn't it? Really. So I think, Dave, you're probably in the lead so far with, what was it, just over 1,000?
I reckon. Hang on, I've got a notepad. I reckon 1,074. If you count the cavalry double.
Count the cavalry double. 1,074 things. My lord. So
this means war.
Mr. Finkel, from the depths of Wales, you've presumably successfully avoided being flushed down the Usk so far this week, but it is early days yet. And how are you stacking up? Because I think you've done 15s and 25s, and you've become a convert to the world of drilling. And there's been all sorts of different things that have been going on. You've done all sorts of shield transfer weirdness. How's your last 20 weeks of painting gone?
Well, considering I'm normally a sort of slow and sporadic painter, I think it's gone quite well. I've painted, I reckon, about 400 figures in total, which by the standard of these other gentlemen is small beer, but by my standard is quite good. It seems to be a pack or a unit a week. And because I'm paradoxically working harder from home than I would when I'm in the office, I seem to find that, getting anything painted is a result. So most of what I painted was a War in Empire Kickstarter order. And apart from one pack of figures I don't like, I've painted the whole lot of those and some other bits as well, including a Saga Irish group, which was sitting around for ages. And then when I bought the plastics, that gave me the impetus to finish off that army. And it means I've got enough guys left to use as kerns in a 25mm feudal English army, which is currently being stuck together and will hopefully be undercoated by the end of the week.
Okay, out in the Welsh Highlands, you'll be. Are you going to spray them white and aim at some of the sheep, or are you going to spray them black and aim at some of the sheep? I guess.
No, the clear advice I was given by the Council of Wisdom was spray them black. So I actually went down to Halfords to get the right black spray and came back suitably armed.
Success. So which ones have been your favourites then? What's the one that you're most, or the unit a week that you're most proud of?
I think the Thracian peltasts that I did last week. I've kind of, for me, I started off washing everything in sort of thin black paint as a kind of to get the shadowing and shading effect, and then I realised that doing that over the whole figure is a bit of overkill because you spoil the shields. So then I learned don't do that stuff over the shields. Then I think I learned, well, do it over the flesh, but if you do it over the flesh goes dark. You need to dry brush the flesh again afterwards. So I think my painting has probably improved from a fairly low base over the course of the 4 months or so.
Wow! And which ones do you look back and go, they were still a pain in the ass? I wish I'd not bothered. Is there something that falls in that category that was the grind or the
probably the Saxon Feared? I mean, we spent a lot of time on them. They still look kind of dull brown. And you think, why did I bother with the shield patterns? Why did I?
Yeah, it's just a
sweat
lot
over these guys,
Yeah. Okay. All right. And then
and I've learned when you're doing elephants, use a big brush.
Use a big brush with elephants, of course. All right, Mr. Webb, you're the I don't think Andy's not challenging the leaderboard, but we're coming to you with your mass undercoat and pretend it's a paint scheme. For in fact, you're the king of undercoat. In the last 20 weeks, you've undercoated your Austrians and called them finished, and then earlier on, I think you managed to undercoat something in gold by accident.
Well, you just can't beat having some golden knights. It's just like it's the perfect colour to undercoat it. I mean, some people go for the classic black for horses and silver for knights. Gold. Got to have the bling. Got to have the bling. You got to make a statement with your army. It's not just about winning. It's about taking part and blinding them with gold.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
So
but if you look at the Golden Horde list, it doesn't actually have knights, Peter. That's a bit of a problem for you.
Everything needs to have knights. You've got Knight Chariot. So, that was probably the learning experience. Look what it says on the tin, not just what the plastic container thing is on the top.
Yep.
Things get moved around, and it works out well in the end. And
we all learned something from it. That was good. Yeah.
Good briefing from Townsman about how to recover it and how to make it look okay in the end. Which for me, I'm happy with that. Yeah. I painted a lot of knights.
Really? Really? You surprised me.
Shock.
I know you're shocked. I know you truly are.
Yeah.
So close to with the Austrians, though. I mean, for the things I've really enjoyed doing, I was enjoying actually painting some Napoleonics, because I've never actually painted any before. So I know it's the white special undercoat, but what really surprised me is the Austrians actually have other colours other than white, which kind of let me down a bit, because I was quite looking forward to a nice, easy start.
Nice, easy job.
I've got to be honest.
Yeah. It's just too much more detail for you.
I was like, well, what the hell? You know, I bought the army. I went, great, I can go
What do you mean they're wearing black? They wear black boots.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, well, then you find out that the Hussars wear pink, and the Austrians are in part blue and stuff, and then others have got, you know, all sorts of brown, orange colours, and you're like, well, what the hell? This wasn't part of the agreement.
This wasn't what you sold, was it? No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And then
But you can't expect geezers to wear a uniform, can you?
Well, you know, it's like you've got to have the East End geezers coming in and giving it large with, we can be light infantry, we can be line infantry, we don't care. So I think I did a quick counting up of running around in between work. If I do the painting to Dave, I'll double up the horses, Gov. I think I'm close to about 800 in total.
Solid.
So I'm quite pleased with what I've done, because after all, no one else has done a blue flying gorilla. I mean, we've just got to face facts on that, you know.
You're top of the list on the blue flying gorillas, aren't you? Top of the list on blue flying gorillas.
I did some Reaper ones just to break it up. I think that was the thing for me to break up the rigidity of it, of doing yet more whitewash Austrians. Yeah. But I'm quite pleased with what I've done. I learnt more about basing as well, doing a bit of variation thanks to some of the briefings from some of the people here. So I was quite pleased. I'm coming out of COVID, coming out of lockdown, not COVID yet. Yeah. long way to go for that. With an Austrian army and a Spanish army. So.
Okay. And was there anything that in there, you know, you talked about being particularly proud of the Austrians. Was there anything there that was fitted as a grind? And, you know, you said you picked up some new basing techniques as well, but what was the low point of that kind of epic slog?
The infantry just never ended, because the Austrian units are in the latter part of the Napoleonics. They go to large, and you're like, what? You mean everyone else has got infantry this big, and the Austrians have to go one more? It's like yet another infantryman. And then you've cleaned them all up and everything else, and you've sprayed them, and then you've got the little epaulette thing. So you think, look, I've sprayed them white. Can't I do that? And you just see, you've got to have these little collar epaulette things. And oh no, there's a little bit of gold here. And at the end of it, I was just, okay, I'm going to go spray something gold.
Yeah.
It was good to do. Don't think I'll do another Napoleonic army. Certainly won't do a bleeding samurai one, that's for sure.
No, that's a little bit too hard, isn't it? No, I must admit, I found exactly the same with the Napoleonics, even a different scale. You start by thinking, I can do this with undercoat, but then you end up just going, no, but there's a little bit of detail. Then actually I could put a bit of red on them. Then I could put a bit of this on them, and I could do that as well. And then each time you're doing it over hundreds of figures. And it just goes on
you spray it out for 3 or 4 and you go, oh, that looks all right. By the time you got past the second unit, you're like, you're kidding me.
Oh, no, it's just a nightmare,
tell you what,
isn't it?
I better like this rule set, and I'd better like the Austrian army, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's my theory as well. Definitely.
This means war.
Well, I think from my point of view, it was just trying to cast back to realise how many odds and sods I kind of cleared off the painting table.
Tim, I thought you were going to do a graph over time as well.
Well, they could do. I'm going to pass that to the IT director or something like that. But it was realising how many odds and sods that I'd got, that I would just dog ends of units and things that I had painted around. So I think I started with 5 or 6 bases of those museum hoplites with the big shields, which were lovely. Doing 6mm prone infantry, that's an easy way to rack up the points because they're just tiny little blobs. So, 130 of those, but that's actually about 30 bases or something. That's 4 to a base, and it's almost just dry brushing, but it doesn't count. I had some 15mm javelinmen that I picked up in France at the end of last year. Then there was that Assyrian army that I think I'd started, but not in a meaningful way before lockdown. So actually cracking on with that and doing the chariots with the sticky on panels.
Wallpaper.
Yeah, the wallpaper on the chariots, which I kind of copied almost literally from my 15mm army. And I think finding how nice new line figures were when they painted up was just really, really good. I think they've got a sale on at the moment. So that's it. I had some blue.
They've got their I think it's their 25-year sale. So I think they've got 20% off, and their figures are stunning. Because after your recommendation, I bought them for my 20mm Chinese, and for what you get, they are beautiful. They are really proper, nice figures, and they paint up really well.
Yeah, no, I think I added quite a few to the original base, but that was like 100 infantry, 24 cavalry, 4 of those massive chariots there as well. Then I had those Blue Moon pikemen who were they're almost 20mm. I picked up in the States. There was 30 of them, and they tower over my other pikemen, the Swiss. Then that Napoleonic army that, again, I think I'd sort of started undercoating, but I really cracked onto it. And there was about 60 cavalry, about 450 infantry, which still pretty much fits in an A4 box, which is an enormous amount of stuff. And my biggest achievement is not buying the British yet. That's what I managed to fail to do.
Remember, I am on the Pendragon website at the moment.
I think I put in order for a few more supplements to the French. But looking at this, going, that army is by Dave reckoning, okay, it's only 10mm, but that's still 600 things. 450 cavalry, 450 infantry, 60 cavalry, and some guns. That's a lot of things, isn't it? And then I upgraded some old. This was kind of almost a wash and a bit of a dry brush and a bit of kind of tarting up on about 100 6mm modern tanks. I had a couple of bases in Numidians that needed finishing off, a few odds and sods of casualties in 15mm, a few more little tanks, a couple of tiny aircraft, some 25mm Hunnic cavalry, 3 of those that had just sat staring at me for ages that I just forced to be finished off. I had a dozen Perry medieval spearmen plastics that have been floating around for ages and not got done. So I think there was a couple of weeks when I just really hammered through all the bits and bobs and rubbish and just got this really eclectic set of things commanded and finished. The most eclectic being the 4 garden gnomes, that I put in a lot of effort to those little garden gnomes as commanders. And possibly, if I'm going, what's the top thing? The French Napoleonic army looks good. The Assyrians look good. The Hungarians look great. But I think the German Kaiser gnome with his beer stein that looks like it's actually got a kind of German enameled country scene on it, even though it's in a 28mm gnomes beer keller, might still be my favorite thing. I just need to find an excuse to actually use him and do that. And I did a bit of variety and did some Malifaux figures, some which I'd forgotten I bought. And then the Hungarian army was surprisingly big, actually. It was a ready-made Essex army, which I think is about 70 quid, plus then some more stuff, which gives me more than everything you could need. But there's nearly 100 cavalry on that, and that was I think the learning of just tough it out and do all the horses first and really work on the horses, and that whole thing of having a separate project of the stuff that I normally used to not like doing, just to see how I could work it, and doing the horses with kind of layers of darker wash at the bottom and lighter wash at the top to give them a bit of actual texture was really good. And then the Hungarians had the stickers on the shields as well, or well, not stickers, bits of paper printed out with a new printer that we got at home, and that had much better resolution than the probably 15-year-old one that we had before, that allowed me to do some really nice little things. Another dozen Sassanid cavalry, and then those dozen Carolingians from Bauida that I got from Vexilia that I've now actually bought the rest of the army to go with it. So starting from 4 bases, I've now just bought the rest of the army, which is a bit nuts. So if you do, the Dave system of a cavalry counts double and all the other things, because it's mostly the tarted up AFVs, and you could argue the chariots are more than that, but I actually rack up 1,546 things, cheating quite a bit because there's a lot of 10mm and there's a lot of 6mm there. There's, in fact, how many? So there's probably about 256 mil in that, which some are tanks, some are infantry, which is small, and then there's the best part of 610 mil. So you could ratchet that down, but then the 28 mils, there's a fair few of those as well to match it. So I think it's comfortably over 1,000, probably depending on how you scale up 28s and 6s and 15s, but it's a bloody frightening number.
Yeah, I reckon for our theory, we've all gone for whether it's 6, 10, 15, or 20 or 25 mil.
Yeah.
An object is an object. The scale is almost irrelevant. So that way, that it keeps it nice and clean. So
yeah.
Tamsin probably is, which brings in the metric pallet load of concrete things and all that.
Yeah. Yep. That's an awful lot of bits. But so, 1,290 things. But if you're doubling up cavalry, that kind of comes up to about 1,500, which is a bloody frightening number for 20 weeks. It's actually about 70 things a week, which is just insane, really, isn't it? I don't even know how I managed to do that, but maybe some of them were just quicker than others.
So scary.
Painting challenge that I do over winter. They do the scoring, so it's by size of figure as well. So a 6mm foot figure is half a point. 6mm cavalry is 1 point. 10mm foot 1 point. Cavalry 2 points, and so on, going up the scale with more points, the larger the figures get.
Okay, so I did, because it was a spreadsheet, I did break it down by scale. So so the it does all.
Yeah, I think you missed on the 6mm. It looks like you missed your vehicles there.
Yeah, actually, I did. I've not collected the vehicles, so they must be something else. They must be in there. My formula doesn't quite work well. It should work, shouldn't it, with vehicles?
But you just think of between the 7 of us. Yeah, I've got close to 1,000 because I didn't count my cavalry. I counted the cavalry as just one object rather than 2 objects. You think of, I've got 1,000. You've got 1,500 easily. Tamsin's going to be well into the 1,000. Dave is well into the thousands. Between everybody else, we're up to the better part of 6 to 6,500 models between 7 of us that we've painted. Wow. That's not a bad effort.
That's spectacular, isn't it? Really, that's
someone's got to keep the model making industry afloat.
I think it might be us. That could be it.
Yeah. So when we walk into the next competition and where there's a trade store, it's like, the saviors have arrived. They bought the power load.
They've helped us out. No, I think that's a spectacular amount. 6,000 or 7,000 things between us. Oh my God. Brilliant.
And that wasn't even with us trying. That was just us going, well, we've got nothing else to do. We might as well paint a few models versus the painting competition that Tamsin does, where they very actively save everything and then really run for it. So it's all base coded, but then they just go for it. So that's horrifying.
Yeah, no, that's some big old numbers, isn't it? Big old numbers. Well, look, let's hope at some point we can actually get out and get some of these damn things on the table. How about that?
This means war.
So talking of getting things on the table, it's that point in the podcast at which we consider who's actually been playing this week. Now, Andy, I understand you snuck in possibly some online games before you headed down the M4 to deepest, darkest, or probably bright and sunny Wales, actually. How's your gaming week been this week?
Yeah, I had one game on Wednesday night against Dave Ray, my regular American opponent. And he wanted to use an Arab army of some kind, and I used Normans in Sicily, basically a practice run for a campaign if it ever happens. So he used the Ayyubids, and I used the Normans in Sicily. And Impetuous Knights did their stuff, found a bit of a struggle against his impact cavalry, surprisingly. But overall, we beat him. Okay.
So is there an Arab army on Tabletop Simulator now, or was it hastily assembled using other troops?
I'm I think it's kind of hastily assembled using other stuff. There seems to be a dearth of proper Dark Age medieval cavalry types in the ones that you can get inside the tabletop simulator. I don't know where people get them from, but I think there's a lot of just relabeling things.
Okay, so was it sort of a tactical game, or was it a straight set up and fight, or did terrain play a part?
Terrain didn't really play a part, except I was able to anchor my flank on some terrain where he wanted to move his Turcopoles forward. My infantry command came forward and shot them, started putting arrows in them, and then they cleared off. He didn't, I don't think, use his commands ideally, because he had one command of elite heavy cavalry bow who felt they had to stand up to my knights and fight them, whereas instinctively I'd have evaded them and used the impact cavalry to charge the knights in the flank and then come back and hit them frontally, but he didn't do that.
Okay.
So that all went fairly well for me, but then my command kind of broke up because, knights go impetuous and they run all over the place. So with a couple of low command rolls, my big knight command, which was 6 impetuous elite knights and a heavy cavalry and an impact knight, were kind of scattered to the 4 winds and difficult to put in order. But by the time he started doing anything serious about it, his army had broken.
Okay. Was that your game of the week then?
Yeah.
Or did you squeeze another one? Okay.
No.
Then, so Dave, you came over to Madaxeman Towers yesterday, and we sat outside in the sun, or almost in the sun.
And squirrels.
Near the squirrels, yeah. Near the young squirrels playing and taking the piss out of both of our poor tactics. And we did something not only weird in that it was an actual face-to-face game, but we did a historical reenactment of something.
Yeah.
Clearly of a battle I'd never heard of. It was pretty niche, but yeah, it was good, wasn't it? It was something the German ADLG people had done.
If you've read Count Belisarius by Robert Graves, you'd be aware of it, which is one of the great books.
Okay.
Got me into wargaming in the first place. Yeah, but I think what was really nice was discovering the Germans had started to play ADLG.
Yeah,
it's a good thing. We like that. So we thought, I think we thought we should support their blog post by. We should put the blog post on the links to this.
We will do. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah,
and hopefully the Germans will take positive attitude that look, we're copying their ideas.
Yes, yeah.
But it was a really fun game. Warband versus cavalry bow was I found it really difficult, but really good fun. They were really good fun, and it's good to get
it was Franks against the Byzantines, wasn't it? And in the Battle of Calia-Velum or something.
Castellanium, which was Narses the eunuch.
Right. Was that who I was then? You didn't tell me that at the time.
The eunuch. Yeah, that's.
I was okay. All right. Okay.
He didn't have a lot to lose, did he?
No, I suppose not. No, because it was odd to having historical. They were 200-point armies, so they're in theory evenly matched, but a historical command structure and deployment was kind of weird. So I had a central command of inferior supported swordsmen and
Byzantine infantry.
Was Byzantine infantry, and then some ordinary spearmen, which were dismounted gepids, and then the 2 flank commands were heavy cavalry bow with one. Like 3 or 4 of them on each side, and then 1 impact bow elite, the Bucalarie, on either side. And the fantastic bit was my strategist general was embedded in an impact heavy cavalry in a command with 3 other heavy cavalry bow and a Hun. And you're just going, somebody, Narses may well have been a eunuch, but he clearly never read these rules. And so I had to be very, very careful with possibly the most, one of the 2 best units in the army. Couldn't really risk going into combat, and your army was all warband pretty much, wasn't it?
I think what you're saying is that Narses, the embedded general, lacks balls.
Quite right. He absolutely
but
did.
Be careful, it's made out of glass. Yeah.
Yeah, he really did. He didn't have the balls to go in and do anything. So. And then your army was just all warband as well, wasn't it? Deployed.
I thought the historical factor of it's making, because all my generals were embedded, which was quite amusing. Yeah. And I think one of yours was.
Yeah.
I think that evened it up, and I think the way the deployment was done really made it a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
I thought it's a historical game. It was. I mean, we thought I was getting a hiding.
Yeah.
But when we were at the end counting up, as always with ADLG, you go, oh, I think I'm really winning this hands down, but oh dear, I'm 2 points from breaking and things like that. So,
well, I think that's the hit points, isn't it? The warband take a lot of hits to start with, but then because they take 4 hits before they break, they can really slog it out. That difference from we're 1 point down to we're broken, you've still got 2 or 3 rounds of combat that they can get lucky and do some damage against the 3-point cavalry, and the way the numbers comes into it.
That's when I think it comes to show when you've got some decent commanders, because it's that extra couple of points to be able to recover a couple of people. That's really what it makes the difference. That's why I like spending it when I've got larger command. When it's the psycho charged forward elephants. Yeah,
just chuck them in. But I think this one was more that, as Dave's troops were kind of pulled a little bit apart, but so when they were kind of slightly scattered to start with, it was possible to mug some of them off, but because it was hard to kill them quite quickly, when you were hitting them in the flank, they suddenly ended up with having another 2 or 3 turns to actually come back and kind of overwhelm you. So you'd go for gaps and then not break through the gap before they could actually get their stuff back together and get back together. But it was really interesting to play a historical game. I think there's probably a few more scenarios out there to try, but this one was surprisingly interesting. It got your Franks on the table as well as
the table. I thought it's a damn good. I think it's worthy redoing. I think there's a lot in it.
There's a lot in it, and I managed to get some Byzantine spearmen or Byzantine infantry on table that don't see light of day very often. Some old strategy
period,
some old sort of strategy and tactica troops that I got in Canada from their Canadian distributor years ago when I was on holiday, that I managed to sneak past the better half as part of it. But no, I thought that was a really interesting game to give a go to. I definitely look it out, and it'd be very easy to. Well, obviously the army lists are there for ADLG, but it wouldn't be difficult to do with other sets of rules as well, I'm sure.
Okay. 2 more games today.
Oh, you did 2 more games today as well. You've been down the club as well, haven't you? Yeah.
The club and 3 tables out again. I think as I said yesterday, I think we could get away with 5 club tables. I think the pub needs support. So I think that'd be quite good. A convincing win, and I think for about the 5th time I've played a Ghaznavid army and lost by 1 point.
Right. Okay. So who did you play today?
So I played Simon Finney at 1 o'clock, and he was using Successor, Lysimachus in Thracia sort of thing. So I was, it's kind of, the idea was a practice for the competition, which probably won't happen at Warfare in November, which is compulsory elephants. So I was using Hindu, Indian, which is a really good army, and that was really good fun. I stomped across the table and got stuck in. It was good. Beat Simon quite well, but Mike Rowland was using Ghaznavid, and slightly different to Inyaki's format, but same result. I was like close to winning, and then I've lost, and I just need 1 point.
Oh no! Okay.
But it's just really weird. I just find that so peculiar.
So Dave, does that mean your next army to paint up is Ghaznavid?
No.
Right.
No, definitely not.
No. Was Mike using because Mike always uses those really old whatever, I'm trying to think of the name of the figures, Peter Lang figures almost, isn't it?
Peter Lang and minifigs.
Minifig strip figures.
Really, it's minifig strip, real. Are they actually 50mm or more like 10?
I think they just got old with age.
Yeah, no, they were the real deal from 1970 wargaming, where they're just figures stuck on a piece of. I'm not being rude, but they're pieces stuck on a piece of green card. It's great. Yeah. It's really good.
No, it's amazing figures, aren't they? They you do look back and realise how much things have come on from that time.
I think it's amazing in the time that I've been playing seriously in the last 10 years to see the figures that used to be trotted out for DBM when I first, the last 2 years of DBM, people used to trot out some horrible things. Like where we're at now with terrain, cloths, everything. It's stunning. It's really stunning.
Yeah, no, it's really moved on. Good. Okay, well that's the week in gaming then.
This means war.
So let's talk about some games we played this week with different army lists. And this week, the army list section jumps to something that we didn't play with at all this week, which was it's a really interesting army. I think quite a few of us have used it in competitions as well. So it'll be interesting to see how Peter and Simon pull this together. So it's the Chinese Northern and Southern dynasties here we've got. And one of them's got an elephant option, but the Northern and the Southern are both quite different. It'll be interesting to see if Peter's managed to resist the elephant option. But I'm taking a wild stab in the dark that Simon, coming to you first, you have failed to resist going Southern and the elephant option. So talk us through your list. Is it indeed Southern dynasties, number 120?
Yes, I am ashamed. It is the Southern. It has an elephant.
Of course.
Now, in my defense, this was the army list I took to a competition in Pamplona. So no, Alicante, I think it was, where Dave and we went down to Spain and said g'day. And it was a themed event where they had a few different armies, and I went for this random Chinese one. I think, Tim, you were there as well, weren't you?
Was that the one in? No, I think I went to the one in northern Spain. That this army was one of the options. That was a cataphr. You had to have some cataphracts, I think, was the one. But I didn't. Okay. I missed Alicante.
Okay, yeah. So this yeah. So I think this army got placed better than Peter. But we won't mention that.
Okay.
Yeah. So the idea with this army here, it was just so with the Spanish competitions, they do a 2-list army. So I had a northern and a southern army combination. The northern army being more purely mounted was a little bit boring. We've done those a few times. So I thought bring the more fun version, which has got, being a Chinese army, almost every element possible known to mankind. And that was half the theory of the army was, can we get almost every troop type other than foot knights into an army? So being scientific in our army.
Looks pretty close, yeah. Yep.
So the first command, which is command 3, which is the simplest one, it's more of the holding command. So it's just a war wagon, spearmen, a couple of crossbowmen, and a couple of horse archers, just to sit on one flank and skirmisher, just to really annoy somebody. And especially in the competition, there was a few mounted armies. It gave you that nice anchor, just sort of say, hold, off you go. The whole army had an initiative of 3, so you could get the train, or at least hope to get the train that you wanted, or be able to move a few things around. So that worked quite well. And with this whole army, I won, out of the 5 games, I won 4 out of the 5. And I only lost in the final game against the top seed. And it came down to both of us had a very similar army. He rolled a 3, I rolled a 2.
Oh, is that close? Okay.
It was that close, yeah. It was in the for both of the armies. We all piled on in. We basically got the entire line in, and he beat me basically by 1, the first line of impact, which mullered most of the army. So you can't complain with that.
No. So did you use the spearman with the wagon to make a kind of bigger thing, or did you use it with the crossbowman to make that into a little kind of block, or is this sort of the Dave Saunders special 2 bowmen operating on their own by magic?
No, I went for this one here. I think it was, I had the war wagon on the flank with a bit of terrain if I could. Then the spearmen and the crossbowmen walked around as this annoying little unit to go deal with things. In the period that we're playing, there were no knights, so you didn't have to worry about those. You did have to worry about cataphracts. They were a bit terrifying. But with the spearmen and a couple of crossbowmen running around shooting things, you were able to negate a lot of the, I'm a cataphract, I've got protection 2, I'm a crossbowman, I don't care, whack. Add the light horse for a bit of support and all that. A lot of things you're hitting on, straight factors, always good fun. So it was just enough to annoy people. And surprisingly, most people don't like war wagons. A war wagon crossbowman parked on your flank, okay, it doesn't move much, but other than heavy foot, it's going to annoy most things because they're just an absolute pig to get rid of.
Yeah, it's just dinging away, isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Then what I did with the rest of the army was the Chinese don't have superior elephants. They only have just normal elephants. But anyhow, so we go for the usual small Death Star of 2 elite medium swordsmen impetuous, an elephant, the elephant skirmishers, the usual troops. There's also a couple of the horsemen. So these are the heavy cavalry impact elite. So you've got little Death Star that can wander around and poke things and annoy things. But then you've also got 3 mounted, 2 of these heavy cavalry impact and then 1 bowman, just to give it that mounted punch if you need to, just to go annoy something, especially if a couple of skirmishers come and deal with you. They've also got the brilliant commander, just to make sure that you can point at the right place you want.
So this is a textbook 2 commands command, isn't it? There's a Death Star, and then there's 2 cavalry and a light horse. Yep.
And then I think in this option, this period in competition, you had to have a couple of cataphracts. So here, if you're going to go for cataphracts, go for full fat, proper elite cataphracts, point that way and go deal with things. So they had 2 mediums, 2 heavy swordsmen, 2-handed choppers, great fun to go and annoy things, some cataphracts, crossbowmen, javelmen, and a heavy spearman. So a decent command of everything they could fight. The 1 javelman would pile into a bit of rough terrain for a bit of safety, if not provide a nice overlap. But you've got 13 to 14 elements worth of all punch troops walking across the table to come around and say hi with a few skirmishers. And it was a very different army that I've used, because I'm normally more of the medieval style, monolithic, knights here, pike here, a couple of bowmen and all that. This was let's mix all the different troop types together, and it was very difficult to use, especially not getting pulled apart. But once you sort of got your hand around it, you could really cause some troop types, some armies, some damage, because you could never get a pure rock, paper and scissors. It was always, I could beat you, but then you'll kill me. Then you got an overlap, and then, oh, this is going to hurt, and then just a whole world of hurt.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of shooting in there, isn't there? There's actually 4 crossbowmen and the wagon, 2 light horse with bow, a couple of little, light infantry as well. It does put out quite a lot of shooting that's quite dangerous to cavalry and armoured cavalry in particular.
Yeah, and it did annoy a couple of the top Spanish players, so they got quite well miffed, as every time they turned around they were being shot at or charged by something
somewhere.
Yeah, and that was always good fun, and it was good fun as an army, and it looked pretty as well. So that was half the other thing.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Saunders, you've used Chinese armies and painted them up. What are you looking at this one? I know there's at least 1 command that's got 2 Dave Saunders bowmen in it. That must keep you happy.
Where did the fortifications go?
Oh, there's 2 fortifications as well. Yeah, I'd missed those off the army list. I think that's probably a question for Simon.
So the fortified camp's good, and the fortifications. I guess the fortifications go with the war wagon.
Yeah, I think it's a hard to remember because that was before COVID, so that was like years ago. But I think the fortifications went with the war wagon command, and so it did allow you put the fortifications out, and you could see some players going, "Oh dear, what's going there? Is there going to be some heavy artillery or whatever?" And people started to avoid that command, and they started giving you up to 8 UD of avoidance and all that. So quite often they did absolutely nothing, but they were great fun just to annoy people.
So they went in front of not an artillery piece.
No, but most people thought it's like, okay, here's a fortification, that's going to be heavy gun, it's going to be pointing this way, it's going to do this. Oh, it's crossbow. Oh, bollocks. I've now wasted that whole command. Yep. So, but it did stop them getting ridden down by a cataphract, so that's positive.
I think it's really good. Having the medium swordsman impetuous elite with the elephant is really good, because I guess that either works or it doesn't. But you've got that supported on either side by cataphracts and heavy cavalry. So yeah, I think it's really good. I mean, there's not many skirmishes there, which is possibly a really good thing. I mean, I can't see the bottom of the sheet. How big is the army overall?
22,
it was 22.
22 in total,
including the camp. That's all right. Yeah, I think
it's
I mean, Simon's. It's not Simon's normal knights and more knights, but it's pretty heavy metal actually in periods and things. Yeah, I think it's really good.
Yeah, there's a surprising amount of width of grunt there, isn't it? You've got 3, 4, 5, arguably the crossbow 6, cataphracts 7, 8, 3 heavy infantry 9, 10, 11, the spearmen 12, crossbow. You've got 14, 15 of you've got to fight it, haven't you? That's half the table with some quite decent stuff that's going to give all sorts of things an interesting matchup. Okay.
I'm quite a convert to the war wagon crossbow, or that's a really good piece of kit. That is, especially if you get it in front of cavalry, it's just a nightmare to deal with.
Yeah, but it is a static thing, isn't it? It just has to sit there and they have to deal with it, doesn't it? It doesn't do anything.
Yeah, but it trundles backwards and forwards, just getting in the way of people. It's really, I think it's quite fun thing.
Okay. Tamsin or Andy, any thoughts from you?
I'm kind of struggling how you'd use that army. It looks very kind of disparate, and I think for 22 units, you don't seem to have a lot with a lot of oomph in it. It seems somehow you think that there's not a lot of really high quality stuff. There's not a lot of very hitty stuff in it for only having 22 units in it.
I think against infantry, you've got. I mean, I always think. In reality, the cataphracts are almost high quality infantry. I know that's a contradiction in terms. So against an infantry attack, if you're assaulting infantry, you go with. I mean, the medium swordsman, impetuous elite are damn good. They either work or they don't. So with the elephants, that's 3 wide. Add the 2 cataphracts, add the spear. You're 6 wide against infantry. And you're manoeuvring with the cavalry, but if you're fighting a cavalry, you've got the elephant to scare off. I think it can work against both cavalry and against infantry, in its own way. I
think it's.
Well, I suppose the proof of the pudding is Simon's played with it in these won games and competition. Yeah. It's just me looking at that army. I think I'd struggle to think how I'm going to use it very well.
It was a very difficult army to use because it's unlike, say, a medieval army where you've got a full badger with 3 pike type of effect. You did have to place your army carefully, and you couldn't just walk up to someone and give them a kicking. You had to spend some time maneuvering, drawing a few things out, poking someone from the flank, getting a couple of skirmishes to annoy people. Once you learned how to tease apart a couple of armies, it worked quite effectively. But if you just wanted the line 6 up and charge across the table, it didn't work. I tried that once. I packed up in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Tamsin, what's your thoughts? It's probably a bit different to the armies that you normally put together, but
yeah, it's more complicated. It's more complicated in each of the commands than I would normally go with. But I think it would be fun to use.
Yeah, I suppose you could simplify it if you had the heavy swordsman and the heavy spearman from the second command. If they were in the first command and you swap the heavy cavalry impact and the light cavalry into the other one, you could kind of have a 2 cataphracts, 2 cavalry and a bowman command, and then you could have a stack loads of pokey infantry command as well, which might make it a bit kind of cleaner. But you still got all the same pieces, haven't you? It's just it's just mixing it up a bit. But looking at that, how do you cover? Which command would you cover the opposite wing to the war wagon with, Simon?
For me, when I dealt against the war wagon, I actually found it most effectively just to ignore the war wagon, and you accept the fact that you're going to get shot at. So I think when I played against the French guy, whose name escapes me, where we basically had the opposite Yves, where he had basically the opposite army. Both our war wagons just sort of parked off by the side, opened a couple of bottles of red wine and did nothing for the rest of the game because we ignored each other, and we just basically lost those 2 or 3 UD of the troop types, and just everything else went for it. So because one or 2 spearmen against a war wagon, war wagons can be very tough. I've tried to charge with pike, and the war wagon stood there and went, really? Is it the best you've got to go against me? So yeah, they can be quite tough.
Oh, it looks like we just had an Adam arrive from left field, hot foot from the cricket pitch, and looks like he's attempting to get on video possibly at this point in time. Do we have an Adam in the room? We do. There he is.
Hello.
How was the cricket, Adam?
Yeah, we crushed them, so all good.
Fantastic.
Took a little bit longer. Took a bit longer than I was expecting, but that's a sentence I quite often say about cricket, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I suppose that does work, doesn't it? Yes. Well, look, you've missed us totting up the fact that we probably painted over 6,000 figures between us in the last 20 weeks, which was quite spectacular. A lot of them quite small scale, and I think because you've been doing 28 mil, you could contribute to that, but not in the hordes.
Did you say 6,000?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know whether to be impressed or appalled at that.
Yeah, it was pretty.
Life, you losers!
I know.
Now, at least 4,500 of those were between four of us.
Yeah. And then Napoleonics, some of them just count as being undercoated, and you've done most of it.
And then Tamsin just came in by the pallet load with all the buildings, the 25 mil, and the concrete and all that. So it was
some of them are very small scale. These figures that were painted.
Tamsin's weren't.
No. Some of them
were you counting the buildings as an equivalent amount of actual figures, or just the one?
I think once we got over 6,000, we were like, the buildings can count as 10, and we're still safe. Yeah. We didn't need to cheat with how we counted the buildings to get over 6,000. That was it was still comfortably there. Very comfortably there.
I think we worked on infantry was 1, cavalry was 2. A chariot was normally between 3 and 5, whether it's a light or heavy, and elephant's a bit more than that. So it got scary very quickly.
Yeah, that's that's appalling.
Well, there's 6 people in 20 weeks, so it's only 50 a week equivalent.
Okay.
Which is
anywhere in the world there's anybody who's in a group of people who've painted more teen soldiers.
Yeah.
I really doubt it. I think we're probably the world record holders. COVID painting.
COVID painting record. No, there will be someone.
Dave, I disagree with you, okay? Because it must be said, us people doing this podcast, we are quite a bunch of sad bastards.
Yeah.
But there are sadder people out there, I'm absolutely sure.
I'm pretty sure about that as well. Yeah. Well, look, there's people who listen to it, never mind us who contribute. So,
Did you say people in plural there?
No, there's a person.
There's at least 2.
There's at least 2. We're aware of 2, which is all good. But Adam, you've dived.
Martin Stevenson, haven't we?
Yes, that's true. Yeah, we got another one as well. So,
sorry,
go on.
I just thought the system was if you listen to 3 episodes in a row, you got invited to take part. That's what seemed to happen to me.
Yeah, well, we've been waiting to cycle out, but nobody's managed to get 3 in a row. So that's why you're still here. To be honest,
okay.
It does work like that. But you dived straight into Simon's slightly eclectic and cobbled together, but possibly effective because it did quite well at a competition. Chinese Northern and Southern Dynasties Army, which has got kind of Death Star plus cavalry command. It's got cataphract plus bits and pieces of foot command, and then it's got park on a flank, war wagon, and some stuff command as well.
Is that a Chinese elephant?
This is the Chinese elephant. I think it's the only one allowed.
Only one.
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention in geography and biology then, was I?
Big country, and it's near Vietnam and stuff like that, I think. Or they used to own parts of it for quite long periods of time. So, so that's that one. And then I think our
do you realise it's taken us 20 weeks to actually find a list that has got something which combines elephants and something which could be classed as a knight?
What could be classed as a knight?
Cataphracts.
Are they technically?
I mean, they're not real knights, but they're kind of.
It's close enough.
We all know they're Knight X, really.
Yeah, they're Knight X from the good old days. Yeah. So then the other one that we've got somewhere is.
I'm taking bets on lots of cataphracts.
Yeah, we're taking bets on lots of cataphracts and lots of elephants in Peter's.
There's going to be an elephant.
So this is the Peter option. Yeah. Chinese Northern Southern Dynasties.
So Simon, early on, you were saying that 1 week ago is line up and charge. I've just gone for that. I've just gone, yeah, we're going to give it some large. We're just going to go in. So good old Elephant Death Star. Got to charge in. Got to have a bit of fun with it. And then I've mixed it up. Tim, you were saying earlier about having the couple of cataphracts with Impact Horse. I quite like that because you and Adam used it against myself and Andy when we were up at the doubles.
All right, Burton, was that? Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
no.
Burton, yeah.
Did it work?
Just.
Oh, good.
We had
excellent.
you on the ropes. And it was like one or 2 points in it, wasn't it? At the end.
It was a draw that game.
Drew that game. Wow.
Yeah, with one or two more turns, we'd have won it because we had them on the back foot, but time was called.
My memory.
Yeah, exactly what happened. Yeah. Okay.
This means war.
So, Peter, you've got to talk us through the 3 commands you've got here then.
Right. So, first command, a couple of cataphracts and a heavy cavalry impact. So, they can actually go in, do a lot of damage. I like having the heavy cavalry impact with the cataphracts because you've got a bit of variability. There's a couple of bowmen there as well. So, either I can have the bowmen in terrain supporting the cataphracts alongside it, or I can have them separate out. So, this is good for one wing. So either we're coming down the side with the heavy cavalry impact and a light horse taking up the edge, or we've got the bowman going forward with the cataphracts alongside it with the heavy cavalry impact acting as a sort of maneuver element around it. It's a competent commander, so it can have the maneuverability, have the capability to either swing towards the elephant group, or it's got the flexibility to take a couple of hits and recover itself. You've got elite in the heavy cavalry impact and the cataphracts. So when they're going to hit hard. It's going to be good. You're going to see things flying all over the place. So I quite enjoy that. That's one way you can just, if you just get the bowmen to get 1 or 2 hits in on a couple of units before they go in, they're just going to go straight through. So I've got one command that's definitely got impact. So I was happy about that one. That's what I was aiming for. Next
that's
one.
driving down a flank, isn't it? For sure. Yep.
Absolutely. It's going to piss off anybody. Turn off with a couple of light horse and a couple of horsemen. Yeah, I'm going to stomp you quite happily. Next one, elephants. Yeah, got to have it. All right. It's not elite. It's ordinary. So I didn't include the commander because I thought, yeah, I can put him in there if I want to, but I'm not risking it totally. I like it. It's an Elephant Death Star. You've got the medium swords, Impetuous Elite, which I think that's what pushed me over the edge to have it, because some of the other armies that you have end up with pretty crappy medium swordsmen or half and halves. So this is going to have some decent hitting power. Plus you've got the ability to go through terrain. So I kept it so this has the flexibility to stomp through terrain if it's there because of the elephant. So someone's slapping down fields, great, not a problem. If someone's going to be coming along with a lot of cataphracts or chariots, no problem. I'm going to put down terrain and force them to fight where I want them to. So I can have a bit of fun with that. Ordinary commander, nice and neat going in. My last command, I've got the commander-in-chief with it. And I like heavy swordsmen with two-handed choppies. Partly because my son chopped up my Spanish knights with it a couple of weeks ago. So I was like, well, if it works for him, it can work for me. So they've got a lot of hitting power. A couple of light infantry in front of them. They're going to get there. A couple of bowmen to work around the edge just to do the overlaps against light infantry or get a couple of shots in. It's well worth it, especially with the bowmen. If you end up against a old cavalry army, the bowmen are going to be great. They're going to be chipping away like there's nobody's business. So I'm very happy with that. And I've got the heavy cavalry impact again. I'd probably actually have the light cavalry and the heavy cavalry impact to hang back a bit more. I might do the light cavalry for a charge around to stop things escaping, but they're more just to protect the edge as opposed to forward project. And then as soon as it starts breaking up, to go in and start snatching up easy points. That's basically the aim of that command. It's a delivery system for two-handed choppies, getting in there to mash things up. You can't ignore it. It's coming at you. what are you going to do about it?
So is that one? So this one's looking at the army, because you've got the cavalry, the 2 sets of cavalry. It's almost one deployment here, isn't it? Your Death Star's going down the middle, and then you've got either of those other commands on one wing or t'other. Are you trying to narrow down the terrain here at all, or?
Well, because I've got a couple of cavalry on either side, I'm not overly stressed about narrowing down the terrain. If it narrows down, I can just narrow my army down to actually just deliver and just play on one half of the table and ignore the other half. I don't care. That's going to be their issue, not mine. I've got the stuff that's going to go forward, so I'm not worried about having to dance around. They're all going to go in and hit. So I want to ideally have them spread their army across, and then I send a light cavalry bow just to stop them maneuvering, and then hit, have the majority of my 3 units hit 2 of his. So that would be the ideal thing for me. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. But that's what I'd love to actually go and do. Go in and start stomping.
Yeah, because I guess the heavy swordsmen are more, by definition, more vulnerable to cavalry than heavy spearmen. But once you've got 6 of them, the numbers start to take on a quality of their own. You're going to have more width and more overlap than a lot of things there. Okay. Saunders, what about you comparing these two? I see this is yet again the time when someone's put in a pair of bowmen. In fact, into 2 commands, there's a pair of bowmen just to get your vote in a very cynical ploy here. But what's your thought on this one?
I'm just wondering, what date is that?
It's the south one.
I know, I mean the date. It says, what does it say?
Peter is the date.
Yeah. Peter the Great.
The option is Peter. What more do you want?
Peter's option.
Six two-handed weapon guys is quite. I'm not sure. I can't decide on that. I think it's good.
They can be very scary. I've had a couple of competitions where someone's dropped 6 of those, comes storming across the table, and against anything other than knights, you can see most armies going, well, hang on a second, that's a bit rough. 6 heavy two-headed choppers, and with the brilliant general, if you're really lucky, you can move 3 times in one turn, right up to the 4 UD. It's a nice delivery system of deal with this.
I think it's
especially if someone drops up with some heavy spear. I'm just going to chop them to bits. I even win on draws, so you got to love it. Yeah,
I think it's quite a good net, as I'd call it, where even if you're facing 4 cataphracts, you've got 4 lives. You can, even if you lose 2 in the initial contact, you're going to probably get past his flanks. So that's quite good. I'd worry about one flank, but I don't think unreasonably. I wouldn't worry about that.
Okay. What about Adam? You're this is the first one that you've had a good full look at. What are you thinking on this one?
Well, the big wads of two-handed chopping weapons again, I think is really, really effective. The elephant, I would be marking Peter down, but I've got marking both down. There's a bit of a gimmick in this army. I'm sure there's a way of doing this army that doesn't rely on one single elephant, or one single element either.
The choppers.
Okay, yeah, I would have been more impressed with that. But I've got to say that I'm probably not going to vote for Peter, because there was an image that flashed through my mind when he was talking. So no, because where he said sort of like, you can't ignore it, it's coming at you, what are you going to do about it? I just had this poor image of poor Mrs. Webb, and that's what sort of passes for romantic talk in his household. And I just thought, no, I can't vote for that, mate. So I don't care how good it is. You've lost my vote.
Here comes the elephant.
Full badger. Okay. Andy, what about you? Which with any kind of context that Adam has now stooped us down to, what are your thoughts on this one?
Most of that went over my head, fortunately. I actually like Peter's list. I think it's neater than Simon's. I'm not entirely convinced about the 6 spearmen, but I do like the concept of the army in that there's very little wastage. Apart from the fact, I'm not sure I'd have 2 archers in each command. But apart from that, I do like the overall idea. You've got a heavy infantry hitty command, you've got an elephant hitty command, and you can hit stuff with the cataphracts and knight if you want to. I've now come to the conclusion in most of my lists, I would like to have a foot bow with a mounted command for missile support, and it's something I'll be trying to achieve wherever I can in most cases. So I do like that idea in core 1. I think having 2 of them is maybe overkill, because I'm not sure the speed things travel, you're going to get a lot of shots in before the hand-to-hand combat. But other than that, yes, I do like Peter's list.
Okay. Tamsin, what about you? What's your thoughts on this one?
I agree with it. It's a much simpler list to use. My main concern is sort of the first command, the cavalry command, because you've only got 3 crunchy units in it. And I'm just wondering, if you drop 2 of the bowmen, I add another elite heavy cavalry.
I'm not sure. Are there 3 in? I'm not sure you're allowed 3 in the army. Actually,
you can get 4 elite cavalry in the army, so I couldn't get another elite one.
But you could get a normal one, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah.
Normal heavy cavalry.
Yeah, I have 2 elite heavy cavalry in that command, and the heavy cavalry in the men with big choppers command could just be an ordinary. Could be the ordinary, because if it's being used, if as Peter says, it's rollers, so to hang back a bit, and then once the heavy swordsmen have chewed things up, go around the flank and pick off the easy targets. It doesn't really need to be elite for that. So I'd probably drop 2 bowmen, get 1 more. I put a second heavy cavalry impact elite in the first command, and change the heavy cavalry impacts in the third command to ordinary.
Yeah,
I'd be more likely to pick this list than Simon's, simply because for me it would be easier to use.
It's kind of cleaner, isn't it? Yeah, I think I'm with you on that thing. That first command, whilst it's got a lot of stuff in and it's got 3 elites, it is still it's 3 cavalry and some supporting bowmen. And I do feel that if you're going to have a cavalry or mounted command, it kind of needs to be 4. Yes. And the cataphracts support are primarily an anti-infantry weapon, or better than that, which means you've got 2 wings which are just sort of a single heavy cavalry and a light cavalry. But then I suppose you've got a couple of bowmen with them, but it's a little bit flaky on the wings. The Death Star's a no-brainer, isn't it? Impetuous elite medium swordsman is so rare. That's just great. You've kind of got a grab for that. But with the 2 list compositions, you're doing quite a lot with both of those flanking commands. So, but that Death Star is so pokey and it's going so straightforward, particularly as it's impetuous. I kind of wonder whether not having that as part of a 2 command, if that makes sense, like Simon's done. He's got a general who runs the Death Star and something else, that whether that's almost a waste of a general, because all he's doing is driving the Death Star forward, whereas the Death Star is just going to go forwards and go in. Most turns it's going to be going forward at 1 point a turn, and you're kind of losing that +1 from the general. I think he either needs to be embedded, or possibly that command needs something else for him to do. Maybe even, pull the 2 bowmen out of the first command and let him drive them around. It just gives you more command points. And those 6 heavy swordsmen, that's a really interesting thing. It looks a bit, I'm not quite sure when you look at it, but then you suddenly think how big 6 of those things are, particularly in a period where this army is going to be fighting other people. There is going to be a lot of spearmen around. There might be some mixed units. That is going to shred them completely, isn't it? That's just such a thing where quantity has a quality all of its own. So I think it's very interesting. I just wonder whether it's a little bit relying on 1 heavy cavalry and 1 light horse on both flanks, that they could get overwhelmed, and you lose the benefit of the elite, and you lose the benefit of the having a specific general with that Death Star. But it's an interesting thing. It's quite different to Simon's in the mix and match, although I suspect there's a similar number of combat troops in there. But it's There was a very similar mix of the two cataphracts, two heavy cavalry. Simon's gone for crossbowmen on the assumption there's probably more armored cavalry around, perhaps in a themed tournament. But yeah, six 200 cutting weapon heavy swordsmen versus, I think it's two of them in Simon's command and three spearmen and the war wagon. Just kind of, yeah, it's different, but that's the quality. Quantity has a quality all of its own, I think, is that one. But maybe it's time to run down the table, then run down the list, and say which one do you choose. So Mr. Saunders, which one are you going for out of those two?
That it would be possible to ignore Mr. Peters' 6 heavy foot. I think you could just sit somebody in front of the 6 heavy foot and just ignore them and go for either side of them. So I think I'll go for Simon's list.
Okay. Andy, what about you?
I'm going for Peters.
Straightforward, does what it says on the tin.
Yeah. I'd be more comfortable using that. I'm sure Simon's is a very good list if you know how to use it. But if somebody said to me, here's 2 lists, choose one, you've got to use it in a competition, I'd feel more comfortable using Peters.
Right, Tamsin, what about you?
I've already said
It's Peters.
Simply because it's easier to use, I'll go with Peters.
I think I would go with...
Would probably be quite fun to play with, but Peters is easier for me to use, so that I need all the help I can get with that.
I think I'm probably with Dave. I think there's more. I'd be worried about Peters' flanks, and I have played that army, and I've managed to ignore those 200 chopper men and get around the side, and the war wagon really does. In fact, the war wagon is a thing that allows you to do that. You can sit it halfway across the table and take some of those people just out the game, and they march up and fight the war wagon. You just overwhelm them on t'other flank. But so I think we're probably 2-2 going into our late arrival. Mr. Adam.
I didn't hear too much about Simon's, but I've heard the chat and I saw it. I'll take issue with you, Tim, where you said the Death Star's a no-brainer, because I think Peter's list has got 2 ideas in it. One is spending points on the Death Star, and it is a big wodge of points. And the other is that two-handed, that big front. I actually quite like the idea of that big front, but I think including the elephant in it unbalances the list. So it makes the sides of the big front vulnerable, and you can ignore it and you can go around the side. So, and I think the idea of a Death Star command just because you can is becoming a bit of a crutch, and I think it's unbalanced the list. From what I've heard about Simon's, it sounds like more complicated, which I tend not to like complicated lists because I don't play enough to play well with them. But ultimately, I'm going to vote for Simon's list, mainly on the basis of probably the better quality of romantic chit-chat.
Yeah, I think so. It's all about romance and love, isn't it? Really, on the south coast. So
Adam,
sure.
You're just a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah. That's me.
Okay, I think that's
so. Now, the final question, Mr. Badger, is: how would your army deal with a full Badger of knights bearing down on it?
Well, for a start, I'd be playing a different period.
Right.
No. That's not the excuse you can use. Yeah.
Well, with the knights bearing down on it, there'd be 2 things. One of which being an elephant. Secondly, an awful lot of terrain. So the knights bearing down on a load of fields and everything else, you're going to be laughing because I'll be getting the shots in and everything else. And then finally, for the knights, unless you've got a full-on knight army, you've got to have some shitty troops, and they're perfect targets for the cataphracts.
Well, it sounds like you've strung a load of words together there. I'm not sure they make any sense if you put them on the tabletop, but it was very confidently delivered. I think that was definitely.
Deliver it with confidence, then charge in.
Cataphracts is the answer to medieval armies. I think that that sounds like a surefire winner. I think that means that we move, seamlessly to the Napoleonic age with our famous tail end of the Napoleonic Wars. that's melancholy enough to signify the end of this epic series, which I'm still threatening at some point to separate out and try and publish as a series of standalone Napoleonic themed podcasts, which definitely no one will ever listen to, or certainly will never listen to all of them, I'm sure. But we're getting to the tail end.
It's nearly 100 people have downloaded the Glue episode.
True. Yes. Maybe we can challenge that with with Napoleonic Special or something like that. I repackage the content is what it's called. So we're here. We've done swearing in Spain. We've done reverse Volker Brexit. We've done beating up the Austrians. We've discovered that the Austro-Hungarians were an empire. We didn't know that Germany existed. The British have done almost nothing so far. We've had a long walk to Moscow. We've walked all the way back. We've had graphic representations of it, and
the British paid for it.
British paid for everything, but have yet to make a proper appearance.
And they turfed the French out of Spain.
They chased it, but that was Sean Bean, though, wasn't it? Really, and there was a lot of swearing.
Plus, they were sailing around everything, and turfed them out with a couple of.
Okay, maybe I didn't learn that then. My impression was the British haven't done much. There was Egypt, wasn't there? We've forgotten Egypt as well.
Alga and the Nile and Copenhagen.
Yeah.
India.
Copenhagen and India. We didn't do that at all. That must be.
We sailed into Denmark and nicked their navy.
In the Teaching Timmy series, but
okay, maybe we missed Copenhagen and the Indians then. But so we're getting
Sharp
to the end
off
of this.
in India as well.
Yeah. So this little geezer, is on his island. He's been made king of an island the size of a postage stamp or something like that, which is fine because he's quite short, and he's reorganised the island in about a fortnight, and they all love him, and everybody else has isolated him, but it's really awkward to kill kings, so they've not done that, and that's kind of where we left it, wasn't it? He's just on some sort of holiday island. He's kind of on his own personal lockdown. He's in the middle of the Med. They've got secure borders. It's a bit like kind of New Zealand, but with better pasta.
He got bored.
COVID there. He got bored in about a year.
The thing is, it starts off after 1814 and the end of the war. In that time, the Allied powers had a massive conference at Vienna, which went on for months and months. And the idea was to unpick all the political changes that Napoleon had made, making people dukes adhering, giving bits of country to different people. And a lot of the powers.
Sorry, hang about. He was making people dukes, wasn't he? Kind of part of the non-dukey kind of People's Liberation Revolutionary Wolfie Smith of France.
He was making people kings.
Oh, okay.
And
so that kind of cutting the heads off thing didn't last very long. He was just done with that. Fine.
Yeah, for example, his brother was king of Westphalia and gave bits of land to Westphalia to make it a kingdom. Bits of Prussia were hived off and given to other countries.
Yeah.
Bavaria got different bits for being allied to him and stuff like that. So if you look at the map of Europe in 1814, political map compared to what it was in 1795 or whatever, it was considerably different. And the main allied powers wanted to basically put the genie back in the bottle the way it had been. And that didn't go too well. After about 6 months, there were massive fault lines between the allies and secret pacts, and they were almost at war with each other.
This was a 6-month conference that almost created a war because they disagreed so much.
Basically, yes.
Well, I must admit, if I was at a conference for 6 months, that would be
into this mix, the Bourbons, the Louis XVIII, he starts appointing all the old aristos to positions of importance and sacking Napoleon's capable officers.
Is there a poor quality biscuit joke about a 6-month conference I can insert there, or is that no? Fine.
You'd have to think of it yourself.
No, it'd be drinking bourbon instead of bourbons.
Oh, bourbons and bourbons, right? Okay. Gary Boulder's not involved, is he? No.
No,
he's
still over in Italy at that point.
The peak.
He's still a clean with his dad's eye, I think, at this point.
Okay,
but he anyway. So the King of France is appointing all these useless aristocrats to important positions. And all the people of talent who got their jobs under Napoleon are a bit hacked off with this. And so the army in particular is somewhat disgruntled with the Bourbons because they're carrying on like, we won the war, we know what's going on, and you tosses, you never got anywhere near a battlefield. And
I thought the French lost. That's how he got exiled. Or the, are the Bourbons not
the French army,
The monarchists.
the monarchists are basically managed to hack off the establishment of the French army.
Okay, because they claimed
As
the
well as
victory
various
when
people.
someone else beat the French army.
Yeah,
That would
they're
hack them
hiding
off.
at the
I get
back,
that.
and
That
then
makes sense.
they
Fine. Okay.
they're giving it
I
large,
think,
like
I think it's also important to say that the French army by this time had been created by Napoleon, more or less moulded in his own image. So the army was still Napoleonic.
They're all little short people, really. With
exactly that. Yeah.
exactly in his old image. Yeah, fine. Like that gnome. Good. Okay.
No. Well, there's a story told about one of his marshals, a guy called Lefebvre, who wasn't the sharpest tack in the toolbox, but heroically brave. And somebody said to him, "Look at you, you've got all these mansions and stuff. You've done very well out the wars." And he said, "Tell you what, you stand 20 paces away, I'll take 30 shots at you, and if I miss, you can have it all." And the guy said, "You must be mad." And he said, "Well, what do you think I did to get this?"
Okay. So he just survived. Fine. Okay.
So, so
the French army's narked off with these biscuit people.
Yeah.
And there's a conference that's gone on for 6 months, and
Yeah.
everybody else is narked off as well. So they're kind of loving the time when there used to be constant war, because that was much more unifying.
Well, basically, Napoleon, the governor of the guy supposed to keep an eye on Napoleon went off for a holiday in, I think it was February 1815. Napoleon,
So he's on an island in the Mediterranean, and he goes off on holiday in February. Where's
the
he
guy
going?
supposed to keep an eye on him. You know,
His keeper.
his parole officer, if you like.
Okay, his parole officer.
So Napoleon thinks, right, here's my chance.
Doesn't he delegate this job to someone, or is it just like?
Well, no, he didn't appoint a parole officer. This guy was appointed to keep an eye on him.
Okay.
Anyway, Napoleon gets his guys, hops on a ship, heads over to France, lands in Fréjus or Marseille or somewhere around there.
So no one anticipated this very, very clever ship movement. They thought he was safe on an island. That must have really.
So he turns up with about 1,000 of his old guard that he'd been allowed to take into exile with him, and the King of France says, "Stop! Right, we've got to stop this bloke." So he sends Marshal Ney with an army to stop Napoleon.
That's Marshal Ney, who used to work for Napoleon and sort of owes his fame and success to Napoleon.
Who said he's going to bring him back in an iron casket.
How did that end?
Well, Ney lines up his troops across the road near Grenoble, and the unit at the front is the 5th Regiment of the line. Napoleon walks up to these guys and says, "5th of the line, I recognize you. I'm your old emperor. If you want to shoot me, here I am. Take a shot." And when they suddenly say, "Vive l'Empereur! Hooray, Napoleon!" And Ney scarpers back off to Paris because he realizes he's lost the dressing room, basically.
So nobody anticipated this outcome then, because to me, I'm not an expert.
And after that, Napoleon's on a roll. It's like a victorious procession, and the nearer he gets to Paris, the more people come and support him. And then, as he gets close, the Bourbons bugger off into exile again and run away.
Buggered off Bourbons. Okay.
Yeah, the rest of Europe think, right, we're not having this. Napoleon will declare him an outlaw, and let's finally put him down. Napoleon saying, "Hey, peace and love, man. I'm not after anything but France, and I'm not looking to fight anybody." And they say, "We don't care. We want to get rid of you." So,
because I think that's given that he's just escaped, formed an army, and marched on Paris. That whole, I'm not really want any more. I'm struggling to see that washing really. Even for the naive Bourbon biscuit people. But right, okay. So everybody else goes, "We've got to stop this thing."
Right. So now it's the year after 1814, and most of the countries have...
When's that then? 1815? Is this part of the quiz question later? No?
Fine, pay attention, it may well be.
Okay.
And so they've mainly disbanded most of their armies, and because the Russians are all back in Russia, the Austrians are back in Austria, and very few people have got an army near enough to do anything about this. British have just finished having a war with America. Really? So a lot of Duke of Wellington's troops are on their way back from America.
Right.
And so there's a period of time where nobody's quite sure where Napoleon's going to attack. Now,
I'm just going to take a wild stab in the dark here, and I'm going to go through northern Italy into Austria.
No.
Oh, wow. He was, he really completely wrong foot.
Duke of Wellington's got this kind of hodgepodge army in Belgium, and a lot of them are not British troops. They're Belgians. They're people who did fight for Napoleon previously, and some mixed bunch of Germans. The Prussians have got an army, but some of them are disaffected Saxons who are not very happy about having been drafted into the Prussian army. So those are the two armies in Belgium. And Napoleon thinks, I'll go into Belgium, do one of his classic strategy of the central position, where you get between two enemy armies, you hold off one while you wallop the other one, and then reverse the process.
Send you back, yeah, have them, yeah.
Right.
And then you beat the Austrians, yeah.
Well, the idea was if he takes over Belgium, a lot of the Belgians used to be part of France, and you'll get political support, and you'll then get enough traction to be able to say, come on, guys, I'm strong enough to fight you off. Why don't we sit down and take a chill pill?
Okay.
So that's his ultimate strategy. Okay.
Right. I bet there was some like Austrian stuff in the back of his mind. Even the chill pill thing. Right. Go on. So he's thinking his own go. There's a hodgepodge British army. It's got some Prussians in it. It's got loads of Saxons in it. They're all in some random Belgian village.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
So Belgian village called Brussels, I think it was British for a base there.
Oh, okay.
Well, the British were based all over the place because if Napoleon came north into Belgium, he could do one of two strategies to threaten the British. One is pile straight up the middle and go for Brussels, the capital. The other is swing round to the coast and cut them off from their base of supply at Ghent or Bruges. I can't remember which one it was now. Okay. So Wellington had to cover both eventualities.
Right.
So he couldn't mass his army until he knew where Napoleon was going.
But if I was, Wellington, I would have thought I might as well go straight to Waterloo and wait there because that's kind of where it's happening, isn't it? Or did he not know that at the time?
No, he didn't know that at the time.
Okay. This was pre-Eurovision Song Contest and everything.
Yeah, Abba hadn't even released their first album.
Okay. Oh, God, that is a long time ago. Right. Okay. So how do they end up in Waterloo then, around that little farmhouse and stuff?
Well, Napoleon can go one of three ways into Belgium. Left, round the coast and threaten the British supplies. Right, and go for the Prussians. Or hey, diddle straight up the middle and get between the two armies and then try and fight them one by one. He goes up the middle. By the time the Allies realise that's what he's up to, they've then got to concentrate their two armies from the outer, from each side. That's going to take time, and Napoleon's managed to get himself between them. And there are two main battles. Firstly, a battle against the Prussians at a place called Ligny, Ligny, and at the same time, Marshal Ney, who's now been appointed to command Napoleon's left wing, is facing a small amount of British troops at a place called Quatre Bras, which is on the direct route.
Dutch troops with some British.
Initially Dutch, correct, yes, that's right, yeah.
Okay. Right, so there's Ligny, there's Quatre Bras. They're
both taking place the same day.
Okay.
Right, and due to a complete screw-up of French command control, partly because Berthier, who remember died beforehand, so he wasn't around to be the chief of staff.
That would be a problem for command and control, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so they had Soult
that being dead thing. Running that. Okay.
Yeah. You've got this entire corps of French troops, 20,000 men, who don't turn up at either battle.
Right. They're duty-free shopping or something? Probably. Yeah. Okay. So the French lose two battles in one day?
They're fighting two battles in one day. Quatre Bras is basically a draw. Ligny is a victory, but not a complete victory. And it's arguable
that's important.
For the French. It's arguable that had this guy D'Erlon and his corps turned up in either battle, either of them would have gone better for the French.
Sure. So 20,000 more men would help.
D'Erlon's excuse was that he got contradictory orders.
But it's true, he did.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So the French have won a battle and a half. They're up. They're going into the second leg. That's they've won one draw, one score win, and and then this character like American Civil War. It just goes on for another day.
No, what happens is for start, Blucher. This is where Blucher is knocked off his horse, and he's carried off the field
very
unconscious.
American Civil War. Yeah. All right.
Right. Remember, he's 80 years old and he's chewing garlic and stuff like that. Remember in the quiz the other week. Anyway, so
and believing he's been made pregnant with an elephant by an Imperial Guard member of French.
So they've got to find the maternity hospital for him. And
fine. Okay, all right.
Being made pregnant by an elephant.
No,
we're expecting to give birth to an elephant.
Carrying a baby elephant,
Pay attention.
having been impregnated by a French Imperial Guardsman.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Anyway.
Well, that does happen, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. This is slightly secondary to the history of Battle of Waterloo, the Waterloo campaign.
Yeah, because I don't remember this in any of the Abba songs. No.
So. It's the evening of the 16th of June. Prussians have just lost this battle. It's all going haywire.
Yeah.
The guy in charge now is Marshal Gneisenau, who is Blucher's chief of staff. They've got two ways they can retreat. One is back towards Namur, eastwards, towards the line of communication. The other is straight back, parallel with the British, and keep in touch with them. They look and they say, right, let's go to this place, Wavre. Why Wavre? Because we can read where it is on the map. And it turns out to be parallel with the line of retreat of the British. So the Prussians go straight backwards, staying in touch with the British. Although, due to some people running off in the other direction, Napoleon gets a mistaken impression that the Prussians have head off towards Namur. He sends Marshal Grouchy to keep an eye on the Prussians.
He messes it up.
That way. Right.
And he's gone off towards Namur rather than
look, this is really complicated. I imagine some stuff happens, and then one morning they wake up and they're at Waterloo. Is that what happens, basically?
About the next day, yes. Right.
The next day. So they wake up and they go, it's Waterloo.
No, yeah. So Duke of Wellington, the day after he drills his battle, hears the Prussians have run away, and he thinks, well, I better get out of here before Napoleon comes at me with the main army. Right. So he goes back to Waterloo, which is a position he'd noticed previously and thought that would be a good place for a battle. It's got a nice long ridge. I can hide my guys behind it. And
that Airfix fort is that Airfix little town.
The Hayson thing, yeah,
it's really good. Yeah,
Hougoumont, yeah, right.
I just paid out. It's not Hougoumont, it's the Hayson, and it is the best model ever made in the whole wargaming modelling industry ever. We all had one. Well, gentlemen of a certain age, and it was just fabulous.
Exactly.
No, I'm sorry,
because if you could find that,
that's the best one.
French Foreign Legion fort.
Yeah,
French Foreign Legion fort was very good, but that was very rare, and it only had one door, so it was much better as an actually unassailable fortress, but as something to use in different games. I do still think that that little French farmhouse thing was very, very good.
The Foreign Legion fort you could use for World War II as well.
Yeah, but it just had one door, Andy, and the doors came off.
You can use that Foreign Legion fort. Sort of Mexico, Spain, Arabia.
Yeah. No, but I guess the key thing though, is when Wellington was looking around the battlefield, he wasn't able to spot a French Foreign Legion fort, so he had to do for the second best choice, and he went for the whatever it was, the Hougoumont.
Yeah, that's right.
Farm, whatever it's called.
Yeah, and they could put the kit together very quickly. That was also an advantage.
Very quickly. Yeah.
Right. So Wellington's defending at the at Waterloo, and Napoleon pitches up with his army. Napoleon's got about 75,000 men. Wellington's got about 65. Rough numbers.
Napoleon set his camp up in the jungle outpost, and he's looking out over the walls of the castle, or whatever it's called. No, Robin Hood's castle. Was that a real one? No, that was that the Zvezda thing. Fine.
That was right. No, that was the Sheriff of Nottingham's castle. Wasn't
Sheriff of Nottingham's castle. Yeah. Okay. So all the Airfix stuff's there, but the most important one is in the middle of the battlefield. So they're all lined up. They didn't have
the gun emplacement.
Oh no, they wouldn't have had the gun emplacement. It's too soon for that. Yes, the coastal gun emplacement. Right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't get horses to drag a 105 millimeter.
And you wouldn't have made
coastal gun emplacements on the south coast of Britain there.
Yeah, but you don't get them in the middle of Belgium.
No, not firing matchsticks into Belgium. It wouldn't have happened. So he's all lined up on a ridge. There's the Airfix thing in the front of him.
Behind the ridge.
And then there's like Napoleon, who's going to do something clever because he always does.
But also Wellington had ridden across the land before, and so he knew where he was going to pick it.
And it's raining.
Raining. Okay.
It's very, very wet.
So Wellington had already scouted out the land some time before and thought, if I'm going to fight a battle, I'd like to do it here because it suits me.
Well, you say scouted out the land. I think he came across that battlefield when he was out fox hunting.
Yeah. scouting
most
out.
of the rest of us nowadays would find that farmhouse on eBay. So
I thought
he splits his army up. He sends Davout warriors to deal with the Prussians, thinking that's the way it used to always happen, and it doesn't work because the French other wing lose their opponents in the rain and the weather. He gets up, it's pissing down with rain. He can't get on with the battle quick enough because the Western thing. He also thinks that his soldiers are still as good as they were 5-10 years ago, when in actual fact they're all like kids who are just like no bloody good at anything. Yeah. And he gets it all completely wrong.
Right.
Bloody
kids. And apparently he's not feeling very well.
No, he's got piles.
Yeah. More than that, I think.
Actually, Dave, I'd take issue with the quality of the army. Don't forget, a lot of the guys he would have would be people who'd be freed prisoners of war, who wouldn't have taken place in the later campaigns when it all went bad for the French.
Yes.
Possibly. So there's a little bloke with piles who thinks that his army's better than it was, and he sent his mate to deal with the Prussians because that normally works, but it doesn't. And he's got the Waterloo Farmhouse in the middle of it, which is all exciting, and the English are all hiding, the British are all hiding in full defilade behind the top of a hill.
Well, a lot of them are, yeah.
Reverse slope. So this is sort of like an American Civil War battle, isn't there? There's one where Gettysburg or something, where they all hide on the top of a ridge. So what, does Napoleon just attack a frontal position uphill because he thinks he's really cool and he's got piles and he wants to get it over with?
He assembles his massed battery of about 90 guns, and there's part of the British line is still visible because there's not enough room behind them on the ridge. And they get blattered by artillery. He then sends Delon's infantry corps forward. Delon's corps gets up to the top of the ridge, and it gets walloped by British cavalry.
Okay, so he just sends one corps forward because I imagine he had more troops than that. He launched a piecemeal attack up a hill.
The second corps, meanwhile, was supposed to screen Hougoumont, this big sort of fortified manor house. But instead of just screening it, the Second Corps got drawn into a full-scale fight for it, and it was a complete waste of time. They should have, because the British could reinforce it easily. They'd stone walls to hide behind.
Is that the Airfix one, or is that a different one?
That's a different one. I think that is the Airfix one.
That is the Airfix one. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the general idea was to suck British troops into it, and it was the opposite that happened. It sucked the French troops into it.
So it was the French, half their army was trying to capture that really cool bit of Airfix thing when they could have just bought another one.
No, it wasn't the cool bit of Airfix thing.
It wasn't. It's another one that Airfix didn't make.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is the Airfix one? Is that the Haysant?
Yeah.
No, this is another place called
the Prince of Orange in it or something?
No, that's a pub in Soho, isn't it? Possibly, but it's all right. So
no, it was the guards. There was the British guard light companies were in Hougoumont.
So, describing this sounds like Napoleon really didn't know what he was doing. Was his piles that bad?
Yeah.
It just lost his ability to... He
didn't really have a grip on the battle that day.
So to speak, yeah. That's a horrible image again. Yeah. It's like another euphemism. His piles were so bad he couldn't get a proper grip on the battle.
Bit of Grapes of Wrath going on.
Grapes of Wrath, that's all grim. So this is basically a story of... it started off as a story way back when of culinary adventures in northern Italy, and it's ended up being kind of a bottom-based medical incident that's led to his ultimate downfall. Because it does sound...
At 9 a.m, he would probably have won it, but he has to wait till 11 o'clock for the ground to ride out, to dry out. Then it's too late.
He wants to take advantage of his artillery, because he's old artillery guy. He wants to blow away the English.
Yeah, and that's what he's always relied on in the past. He's living on old glories. He thinks his troops are as good as they used to be, but they're not. They're a bunch of kids.
And anyway, the Prussians managed to disengage.
He can't do it.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, Grouchy finally finds out where the Prussians are.
Sorry, I would just like my chance to derail Andy as well. So
okay, go for it. Chip in.
Oh, I thought I would just throw that in there.
Fine. You've not got anything to add. You just want to try and derail Andy because everybody else has a go.
Yeah.
Fine. No, that's good. That's a better contribution I've made the last 12 weeks. So that's all good. Yeah, much more sense. So this has all gone horribly wrong then.
It's all going wrong. The Prussians basically.
So go now. You have your go now. You carry on talking, mate.
Yeah. Prussians managed to get away from Grouchy and turn up to save Wellington by putting
They
pressure
don't, they
on the
don't
French
turn up
boat.
in Napoleon's rear, do they?
No,
It's
Napoleon actually thinks they're their Grouchy returning to the battlefield, having defeated the Prussians, only discover it's the other way around and it's the Prussians arriving on his flank.
Right.
And he's expecting his two armies to concentrate and finish off the English, Dutch, and all the allies. And it's not that way round.
So he's got problems to the front, he's got problems in his rear areas, and now he's got problems on his flank as well.
Yes.
It's just all gone up. So it sounds like a battle that's just unwinnable. So this is a great wargaming battle, but is it just unwinnable because
it's not unwinnable, because if his generals had listened to what his orders were, so he's got one group there off running after the Prussians, but his general orders are march to the sound of the guns, and they went and faffed around. If they'd have turned up early and ignored the Prussians, they were supposed to just see them off and then come back to the battle. Then they would have wiped out Wellington, because they'd have just come in at the right side, hit from the side, and taken it out.
Also, don't forget you had the nonsense with Second Corps trying to take out Hougoumont instead of just masking it, tying up an entire corps rather than an entire brigade.
So
then you
they
also
got bogged down without no blitzkrieg.
afternoon.
Then they should have done blitzkrieg and gone past the obstacle.
Absolutely. And then in the middle of the afternoon, Marshal Ney launches massive cavalry charges by about thousands of French cavalry against British squares, and it just gets nowhere, but it wears down the French cavalry.
Right.
So it's got a timing issue as well. So if the British storm in with their cavalry, the French come back, and instead of staging it, they should have just, got the British to turn into squares and then hit with artillery. That's his normal thing. Or then time it, it's like in Art to Go. You want all the elements that arriving at the same time. Instead, he's sent Ney's charge.
I actually think I don't think that's right, Peter. I think it's like it's in Battle Empire. Really, the whole squares thing. I've not found that rule yet, but Battle Empire. But okay, so basically, this fantastic, super military career of genius and the rest of it comes to one boiling crescendo at which they do everything wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So all the stuff that he got right earlier on, he just staved up all the mistakes and just made them all in one battle, for which, and after he made such a bad mistake, someone went, let's start naming railway stations after this. And we rub it in forever.
Yeah, as a war gamer, you can have 2 or 3 games where all you roll is 5s and 6s. At some point, you're going to get a game where you roll nothing higher than a 2.
Yeah, and this was just it.
Even with general included, uphill against mediocre bow in the open versus knights, you roll a 1, he rolls or she rolls a 6.
And the flank general turns out to be unreliable.
Just make the point here that I've always skipped straight to the latter position. I think I've never had the former.
Right. Okay. All right. Just battle words. Right. Okay. No, that's it. So it's an ignominious end, and the French mess up and lose because they roll loads of 2s.
Yeah, they lose.
When Abba come on.
Incredibly bloody.
In fact, if Abba knew anything about history, they would have sung "My," and Waterloo, Napoleon ran away, pursued by a lot of angry Prussians. Better history, but they probably wouldn't have won the Eurovision Song Contest.
They wouldn't have scanned as well. Okay.
No, absolutely.
So he surrendered then at some point, or would surrender.
Yeah, but not
eventually. Yes,
not for quite a while.
Okay.
They chased him down.
The guards were all dead.
You have to remember, while all this was going on, the Austrians were coming into France as well.
Right, of course. So he must have thought, I'll have a go at them. So he ran away. When did he get captured then?
About a couple of weeks later. He was
So
trying
he just
to
ran away, captured,
sneak out of France.
And then did they work out this idea of giving him an island and a kingship? Didn't really work. Did they do a bit more?
Yeah, they did. And they sent him into exile on Saint Helena, which is down in the middle of the South Atlantic.
There aren't even any direct flights.
They decorated his house with wallpaper impregnated with arsenic, which is what did for him in the end.
Well, almost all wallpaper at that date contained arsenic.
Yeah.
It was in the inks.
So it was the arsenic which got him in the end out of the wallpaper.
So this massive so he was basically killed by wallpaper in the end.
Yeah, but arsenic. It was certainly arsenic. Whether it was probably not from wallpaper though.
No.
He had gut complaints, and arsenic was used in a lot of emetics that were.
So he had piles, and then arsenic did for him. That's just a horrible end, isn't it? Really.
I've got another interesting point.
Right.
There were so many dead bodies on the Battle of Waterloo. After the battle, it took them for 5 days. People went round knocking the teeth out of the dead bodies on the battlefield, and for even in the 1880s, people were referring to false teeth as Waterloo teeth.
Okay. Well, I think
a full set of Waterloo teeth.
I think on that point, it's been an epic, multi-week, slightly bizarre, full of irrelevance session of learning about Napoleonic Wars, and I think knowing about Waterloo teeth is probably the most appropriate point at which to draw quite a big, thick blue and red line underneath what has been an epic educational experience. So thank you all. I'm glad it ended with piles and arsenic. That's always nice as well. I'm glad the Austrians got a mention in the last episode. So that's it. And I'm sure anybody who listens to all of this will.
Just before you go, I want to share the biggest thing that I've learned from the whole of this series. And the biggest thing I've learned from the whole of the series is when I cook, I don't use enough crayfish and fried eggs with my chicken.
Maybe we'll do a video episode of Cook Along with the Gang of Seven to do great Napoleonic recipes of our time, not involving arsenic and not giving yourself piles. So, look, ladies, gentlemen, thank you very much for your forbearance. And I think I'm almost ready to think about painting up that British Army. But I'm going to hang on for a bit longer. That's going to be it. Good. We'll see you on the Battle Empire field play at some point soon. That's the last we'll ever hear of that music, because I doubt anyone's ever going to listen to this twice again.
You know there's going to be a series 2.
There's got to be a fight. Yeah, there's got to be another thing. Adventures in Arsenic on St. Helena. This could be the special. That could be it. There could be a whole months and months of that one. So
God help us.
Specialist subject. Good. So look, I think from moving on in our world of coronavirus, it's the other thing that really gets under your skin and could possibly cause lasting damage. It's Andy's quiz.
Question. Comment les voir? Question. La trou est sans fond? Question. La légende le dit? Question. Elle dit aussi? Question. C'est une maladie? Question.
So Andy, impose your quiz answers upon us, and then impose this week's final quiz of the series.
Okay, well, last week the theme was there was this Irishman, and I wanted to know who were the following 3 gentlemen of Irish birth or ancestry. Number 1, the British general who, on being reminded of the fact that he was born in Ireland, replied that being born in a stable does not make one a horse.
Wellington.
Oh, nosy.
Yep, well done. Yep. Number 2, the American general who was appointed as military governor of Texas after the Civil War, and who once commented that if he owned hell in Texas, he'd rent out Texas and live in hell.
No idea.
Phil Sheridan. He was later commander-in-chief of the whole American army. And then number 3, the British admiral who, on being advised to stop sending his ships to Crete to help evacuate the British forces in 1941 because of mounting losses to air attack, replied, "It takes the Navy 3 years to build a ship, but it will take 300 years to build a new tradition. The evacuation will continue."
That's ABC.
Correct. Admiral Cunningham.
Question. Comment les voir? Question. La trou est sans fond? Question. La légende le dit? Question. Elle dit aussi? Question. C'est une maladie? Question.
Right, this week's quiz is slightly different. and it's called Testing Tim on Napoleonics. So to find out what, if anything, Tim has learned over the last so many weeks. Now I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and they're multiple choice. So, the true answer is in there somewhere. You just have to discern it, right? So question 1. At which port did Napoleon make a name for himself by commanding the artillery during the siege in 1793? Was it Margate, Calais, Brest, or Toulon?
I think that was, I was going to say Alexandria, but that's not one of the answers. Brest has got best comedy potential, but I think I will go Toulon because I seem to remember that it was utterly incomprehensible why the British fleet were choosing Toulon to invade.
It's because the French fleet was there, but hey,
I guess that was it.
Can you keep track of the score, please? So he's got one right.
Un point.
Right.
Wyoming, un point.
Okay. Number 2. In 1796, Napoleon took over the army of Italy. In addition to Austria, which other kingdom's army did he have to fight at the start of the campaign? A, the Mafia. B, Papal States. C, Venice. Or D, Savoy.
Mafia was probably later when he was in Sicily or the Sardinia or something like that, and his pizza time came later. I don't think the Papal States exists because that just had knights in it, and Peter's not bouncing up and down and excitement, so it can't be that one. So I think basically because there's always a culinary theme as well, and Savoy is a form of cabbage, and that's a food. I think I'm going to go with Savoy because all the stuff around Italy had a food theme.
Cabbages.
Well done. Yeah, Savoy it was, right? Right. Now, number 3. Which military order was ejected from Malta by Napoleon en route to Egypt in 1798? Was it the Knights of St. John, the Templars, the Baron Knights, or the Knights Husseyni?
The Baron Knights were probably due to be ejected from many places, really.
Long ago, outside a chip shop in Walthamstow, one of the first singles I ever bought that was.
And that's. I think you should probably put it on MP3 next time we go to a competition. We can kind of put that on repeat. It could even be the new theme tune for a new section, in crappy military theme records of all time. So I don't think it was the Baron Knights. I think they come later. They competed with Abba for in that period around the end of the Napoleonic Wars. So I think I'm going to go for one of the first two, and I would probably go the Templars.
No.
Knights
of St. John.
Knights of St. John. Okay.
Right. Okay.
2 points.
Right.
2 points.
You got one wrong. Right. At the Battle of the Nile, in which ship did the boys stand on the burning deck? Was it the Redoutable, the Orient, the Plume de ma Tante, or Bateau Fils de Visage de Bateau?
Right. That last one sounds like one of the things that one of your French swearing generals says, even though I don't know.
No, it's the French for Boaty McBoatface.
Boaty McBoatface. Okay, then that works. Then that's good. The Plume de ma Tante is the sister ship of Le Songe dans l'Arbre, which is a great Eddie Izzard sketch of our time. So I think I'm going to go for
sur l'autobus.
Sur l'autobus, yeah, and then we get into Latin, Caecilius est in horto. But I think I'm going to go for l'Orient because I can't remember the other one.
It is the Orient, right? Okay. Right. Number 5.
Is that trois points?
Quatre points.
Okay.
No, it's 3 points.
3.
Yes, I got one wrong.
Because you got one wrong.
Yeah. Who led the Swiss army? Who led the Russian army?
Question. Comment les voir? Question. Le trou est sans fond? Question. La légende le dit? Question. Elle dit aussi? Question. C'est une maladie? Question.
Yeah. Marshall
Andy,
Silver.
how many of these questions are there?
There's three more.
Right. Okay.
Right. I'm going through campaign by campaign. I'm trying to pick up something from each of the weeks, right? In
I think
1814,
you're missing the point. This isn't supposed to be a proper educational quiz.
In 1814, after Napoleon was forced to abdicate, who became King of France? Was it Louis Armstrong, Louis XVI, Louis XVIII, or King Louis?
I think that was definitely the 18th because there was the one where the 17th didn't exist.
Correct.
So they made it up for example.
Okay.
Whoa!
Right. It's the penultimate question here. In the Waterloo campaign, which newly appointed marshal with a dwarvish name commanded the right wing of the French army? Was it Grumpy,
Galadriel?
Grouchy, Bashful, or Doc?
It has to be. Is this a reference to the Napoleon's piles and it's grouchy?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Last question.
Dear
In Sharp's
God.
Waterloo,
Now,
in Sharp's Waterloo, Sean Bean as Sharp says he'd like to ram the Prince of Orange's crown somewhere the sun doesn't shine. What is Harper's response? A. Go for it, Richard. B. What are you going to do if it gets stuck? C. Are you sure that won't create a diplomatic incident? Or D. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
I would definitely go with. Did he just say bastard a lot?
No.
Let's go for oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Correct. Right.
Right. Okay. Anybody keeping score? Anybody still alive? Anybody still awake?
Right, 4 wrong.
What was that?
12 right, 4 wrong.
12 right, 4 wrong out of 28. That's always there.
16. 16.
That's
400.
412.
I think it was 18 out of 15.
Oh,
And on that note, we draw a line under the quiz.
Question, comment les voir? Question, le trou est sans fond? Question, la légende le dit? Question, elle dit aussi? Question, c'est une maladie? Question.
I've actually written a little poem called Ode to the Podcast Crew.
Do you want to record it and send it to me? No. How long is it?
Oh, it's
how many pages?
1 page.
Fine. Fire away.
We started in March, and in each passing week, on gaming and painting for hours we speak. There's Timmy and Tamsin and Adam and me, plus Peter and Dave and Simon the Aussie. The armies we painted span a large chunk of time, from Chinese through Vikings to Brits on the Rhine. Each week for debate, one list we submit, except for Dave when he chose Ugarit. I've learned about painting. I now know this much. For an African elephant, I must use a big brush. We found out what unit types each person likes. For Simon and Peter, it's Nellies and Knights. We're all different tastes. It's horses for courses. Tim likes mounted armies, but not painting horses. Dave likes classic armies, including the Roman, as long as they include 2 mediocre bowmen. Adam prefers to swap plastic for lead, and Tamsin likes accessories and stuff for Judge Dredd. Wargaming vocabulary is expanded through Tim. Hazoons and Full Badger were coined by him. We've taught him Napoleonics, and this he has mastered. He now knows there's more than Sean Bean saying bastard. We hope you say well and can game with your friends as our once weekly sequence of podcasting ends. So charge your opponents with bow, lance, or tusk. The day will be yours. They'll be flushed down the usk.
Hey! Hey! Well done, Andy.
Let me ask this.
This means war.
Well, look, I think we're probably a month away from the next time that we come back to this, which will probably be the time it takes me to edit. Takes me time to edit this one down to something manageable. So I think rather than look at what we're going to paint over the next month, maybe we'll reconvene and do that, or possibly come back with a Viking special. We can discuss that on the chat and see how it does. But it's been an epic 20 weeks. I think we've nearly all been there for nearly all of them in some way, shape, or form. We've painted a lot. We've gamed a lot. We've talked a lot of rubbish. We've done a special on glue. We've done a special on paintbrushes. There's been all sorts of nonsense on this one, and it certainly helped keep me sane sane-ish over this one. And it's given some focus to the painting. It's been a nice weekly anchor for all of us. So I think from my point, I'd just like to thank all the other 6 of you for educating, entertaining, and soaking up enormous amounts of my Monday nights. And I think it's been an epic thing. So thank you, folks, and thank you all. And we will return. I'm sure we will absolutely return.
Like Napoleon.
Napoleon.
Thank you to our listener.
Yeah, thank you to our listener. We'll return with piles, and we'll be licking the wallpaper. That's probably the.
Andy can ask another one.
We can ask another one. Yeah, we'll all be flushed down the usk.
Right, just stop the pit.
Yeah, just stop the chat.
Tim,
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you very much.
Well
Listener,
done.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night. Good night. Good night.
I'm wearing Speedos.
Don't tell the listener.
Right.
He's not getting a refund.